There is a boy standing on the edge of a moisture farm, watching two suns sink toward the horizon. He does not move. He does not speak. The binary sunset paints the desert in shades of amber and violet, and the wind carries sand across the flatlands in long, slow waves. The boy is 19 years old. He has never left this planet. He has never seen an ocean or a forest or a city that stretches beyond a few dusty blocks. He has been told, all his life, that this is enough, that the farm needs him, that the harvest matters. And he stands there, at the edge of everything he knows, and looks at the sky the way people look at a door they are not allowed to open. That moment, from the original Star Wars film released on May 25, 1977, is one of the most famous images in cinema. But the thing most people do not think about is what it actually means when placed in the context of the full Star Wars timeline. Because that boy, Luke Skywalker, is not just dreaming of adventure. He is standing in the middle of a story that has been unfolding for thousands of years. A story about power and its corruption, about empires and the people who resist them, about the distance between what we are told to be and what we choose to become. The binary sunset is not the beginning, it is the middle. And the timeline that stretches out in both directions from that single image, forward and backward across millennia, is one of the most ambitious narrative constructions in the history of popular storytelling. This is the entire Star Wars timeline. Every era, every war, every betrayal, and every act of quiet defiance that led to the galaxy we know. And we are going to walk through it, from the very beginning to the very end, slowly and carefully, because the details matter. The connections matter. The things the story chooses to repeat and the things it chooses to leave behind tell you something about what Star Wars actually is, underneath all the lightsabers and starships and desert planets. Welcome to Twin Suns. Get comfortable, settle in, turn the lights down low. This is going to take a while, and that is the point. If you have not subscribed yet, it really does help us keep making these. Let us get into it. To understand the Star Wars timeline, you have to start not with a character or a battle, but with an idea. The Force. It is the foundational concept upon which every conflict, every alliance, every tragedy in this galaxy is built. And the way the story treats the Force changes over time, which tells you something important about how the galaxy itself changes. In the earliest days of the Star Wars universe, thousands of years before any of the events depicted on screen, there were no Jedi and no Sith. There was only the Force, and the people who could feel it. The lore establishes that on various worlds across the galaxy, Force-sensitive individuals began to organize. They formed traditions. They developed philosophies. They debated, as all groups who discover power inevitably do, about how that power should be used. Some believed the Force was a river to be followed. Others believed it was a tool to be wielded. That fundamental disagreement between surrender and control, between serving the Force and commanding it, is the crack in the foundation. Every war in the Star Wars timeline grows from it. The Jedi Order, as it eventually came to be known, chose the path of surrender. They built their philosophy around selflessness, around emotional detachment, around the idea that the Force flows through all living things, and that to serve it meant to let go of personal desire. They established a temple on the planet Coruscant, the political center of the galaxy, and they became guardians, peacekeepers, advisors to the Galactic Republic, which was itself a democratic union of thousands of worlds stretching back thousands of years. The Jedi and the Republic grew up together, intertwined so deeply that it became difficult to see where one ended and the other began. The Sith, by contrast, chose control. They believed that the Force was most powerful when channeled through passion, through anger, through the unrestrained exercise of individual will. They did not see selflessness as virtue. They saw it as weakness. And for centuries, the Jedi and the Sith fought, war after war after war, with the galaxy caught between them, until finally the Jedi believed they had won. The Sith were destroyed, wiped out, gone, except they were not. Approximately 1,000 years before the events of the films, a Sith Lord named Darth Bane looked at the wreckage of his order and came to a conclusion that would reshape the galaxy. The Sith had lost not because they were weaker than the Jedi, but because they were too many. Too many Sith meant too much infighting. Too much ambition turned inward, so Bane created the rule of two: one master, one apprentice, no more. The Sith would survive in secret, passing their knowledge from one generation to the next, hiding in the shadows of a galaxy that believed they were extinct. They would wait, they would plan, and when the moment was right, they would strike. That is the state of the galaxy, as the Star Wars timeline begins in earnest. A republic that has endured for 1,000 years, but is showing cracks. A Jedi Order that has grown comfortable in its role as guardian, perhaps too comfortable, perhaps too certain of its own righteousness. And somewhere in the darkness, two Sith, always two, waiting for their chance. Think about what that means. The entire structure of galactic civilization is built on a lie. The Jedi believe the Sith are gone. The Republic believes the Jedi will protect them. And the Sith, patient beyond measure, are already inside the machine, already turning the gears, already setting the stage for a collapse that no one sees coming, because no one is looking. The earliest point in the on-screen timeline that Star Wars has explored is the High Republic era, set roughly 100 to 200 years before the prequel films. This is a period that Lucasfilm began exploring in earnest through a publishing initiative launched in January of 2021, with novels, comics, and young readers' titles painting a picture of the galaxy at what was supposed to be its golden age. The Jedi are at the height of their power. The Republic is expanding into the Outer Rim, building new hyperspace routes, establishing new outposts on the frontier of known space. It feels from the inside like progress, like civilization reaching toward the stars. But the High Republic stories reveal something important. Even at their height, even at the peak of their power and influence, the Jedi are already struggling with the contradictions at the core of their philosophy. They take children from their families. They forbid attachment. They train those children to fight, to wield weapons, to go to war if necessary. And they call this peace. They genuinely believe they are doing good, and in many cases they are. But the gap between what the Jedi say they are and what they actually do is already visible, if you know where to look. The Acolyte, which premiered on Disney Plus on June 4, 2024, and was created by Leslie Headland, is the first live-action Star Wars project to explore this era on screen. Set approximately 100 years before The Phantom Menace, in the final days of the High Republic, the series follows a former Padawan named Osha, played by Amandla Stenberg, who reunites with her Jedi Master, Sol, played by Lee Jung-jae, to investigate a series of murders targeting Jedi. The series is set at a time when the Jedi are at the height of their influence, but it immediately complicates that picture. It shows Jedi making mistakes, covering up those mistakes, choosing the reputation of the Order over the truth. The series was canceled after one season, with Disney confirming the decision in August of 2024. But what it established in its 8 episodes matters for understanding the timeline. It showed the emergence of dark side powers in an era when the Sith were supposed to be extinct. It showed the cracks in the Jedi Order long before those cracks became chasms. And it asked a question that the entire rest of the timeline answers. What happens when the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones causing the harm? That question hangs in the air for 100 years. The galaxy turns, the Republic endures. The Jedi continue their work, generation after generation, unaware that the seeds of their destruction have already been planted. And then, on a small desert planet in the Outer Rim, the story truly begins. If you are enjoying this story of the timeline, subscribing to the channel goes a long way toward helping us make more of these. Star Wars, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, released on May 19, 1999, directed by George Lucas, is the film that reshaped how an entire generation understood this galaxy. It was the most anticipated film of its decade, perhaps of its century. It grossed $924 million worldwide, making it the highest-grossing film of 1999. And for all the debate that has surrounded it in the quarter century since its release, the film does something remarkable. It shows you the Republic at the precise moment when everything begins to fall apart, and it disguises that collapse as a children's adventure story. George Lucas wrote and directed The Phantom Menace 16 years after Return of the Jedi. The technology that had limited his vision in the original trilogy had finally caught up with his imagination. He could build entire worlds digitally. He could populate battle sequences with thousands of combatants. He could create alien environments that would have been impossible with practical effects alone. And he used that freedom to build a prequel trilogy that looked and felt fundamentally different from the originals. Brighter, more populated, more politically complex. The aesthetic shift was deliberate. The Republic is a civilization at its peak, and it should look like one. The decay is structural, not visual. The buildings are gleaming. The Senate chamber is magnificent. The Jedi Temple is immense. And underneath all that grandeur, the foundations are rotting. The film opens on two Jedi, Qui-gon Jinn and his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi, sent to negotiate a trade dispute with the Trade Federation, which has blockaded the planet Naboo. That sentence alone tells you something about the state of the galaxy. The Jedi, who are supposed to be spiritual guardians of peace and justice, are being used as trade negotiators. They have been absorbed so completely into the bureaucratic machinery of the Republic that their first mission in the prequel trilogy is not a quest or a rescue. It is a business meeting. The story is not being subtle about what it is doing here. The Trade Federation, acting under the secret direction of a Sith Lord named Darth Sidious, invades Naboo. The Jedi escape with the planet's young queen, Padme Amidala, and are forced to land on Tatooine for repairs. And there, in a slave quarter on the edge of civilization, Qui-gon Jinn finds a boy named Anakin Skywalker. Anakin is 9 years old. He is a slave. He has been a slave his entire life, owned by a junk dealer named Watto, forced to work in a shop repairing machinery, unable to leave, unable to choose his own future. And Qui-gon senses something in him. The Force is extraordinarily strong with this boy, stronger than anything Qui-gon has encountered. Blood tests reveal that Anakin's midi-chlorian count, the microscopic organisms that serve as a bridge between living beings and the Force, is higher than any Jedi on record, higher even than Master Yoda's. This needs to be stated plainly. The Jedi Order discovers a child who is a slave, a child who has been deprived of freedom, of choice, of the most basic dignity. And their first response is not to free him because slavery is wrong. Their first response is to test his blood to see if he is useful. Qui-Gon frees Anakin not through the authority of the Republic or the moral weight of the Jedi Order, but through a bet, a wager on a pod race. Anakin's mother, Shmi, is left behind. Still a slave, still owned, the Jedi take the boy and leave the mother, and the film treats this as the beginning of an adventure rather than the beginning of a tragedy. But it is a tragedy. That is the whole story. Everything that happens to Anakin Skywalker, every choice he makes, every act of violence and every moment of despair begins here, on Tatooine, with a 9-year-old boy being told that the most powerful and righteous people in the galaxy have the ability to free him, but not his mother. Think about what that teaches a child about justice. Think about what it teaches him about the people who claim to represent it. The Jedi Council, led by Yoda and Mace Windu, initially refuses to train Anakin. They sense fear in him, attachment, the desire to see his mother again, which they interpret not as a child's love, but as a vulnerability to the dark side. They are not wrong about the danger, but their response to that danger, which is to consider rejecting the boy entirely, reveals something about the Order that none of their speeches about peace and justice ever do. They would rather turn away a frightened child than confront the possibility that their rules about attachment might be incomplete. Qui-Gon defies the Council. He insists on training Anakin, and then, in the climactic battle on Naboo, Qui-Gon is killed by Darth Maul, a Sith apprentice whose very existence proves that the Sith have returned. Qui-Gon was the one Jedi who saw Anakin as a person first, and a prophecy second. He was the one who might have trained the boy with the compassion and flexibility that Anakin needed. His death removes the one safety net that might have caught Anakin before he fell. Obi-Wan Kenobi, now a newly minted Jedi Knight, promises his dying master that he will train the boy. The Council relents, and so Anakin Skywalker enters the Jedi Order not because the Order wants him, but because a dead man's last wish demanded it. Not because they believe in him, but because they fear what he might become if left alone. There is another figure moving through the Phantom Menace who demands attention, and that is Senator Palpatine of Naboo. He is, of course, Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord who orchestrated the entire crisis. He manipulated the Trade Federation into invading his own planet so that he could use the resulting sympathy to get elected Supreme Chancellor of the Republic. And it works. By the end of the film, Palpatine has achieved the highest elected office in the galaxy, and no one suspects a thing. The genius of this plan, and it is important to understand this for the rest of the timeline, is that Palpatine did not seize power. He was given it. The Republic's own democratic processes, its own systems of governance, handed supreme authority to a Sith Lord because the system was already so broken, so mired in corruption and bureaucratic paralysis, that the people within it could not see what was happening. Palpatine did not destroy the Republic. The Republic destroyed itself. He simply made sure he was standing in the right place when it fell. 10 years passed between The Phantom Menace and the next chapter. Star Wars, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, released on May 16, 2002, picks up the story in a galaxy that has changed in ways both visible and invisible. Anakin Skywalker is now 19 years old, a Padawan learner under Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the relationship between master and apprentice is strained in ways that neither fully understands. The film opens with an assassination attempt on Padme Amidala, now a senator, which sets two plots in motion. Obi-Wan is sent to investigate the assassin's origins, which leads him to the planet Kamino, where he discovers something that should have shaken the foundations of the Republic: an army. A massive clone army, secretly commissioned 10 years earlier by a Jedi Master named Sifo Dyas, who died under mysterious circumstances. The army was built in secret, grown from the genetic template of a bounty hunter named Jango Fett, and it is ready for deployment. Think about what that means. Someone, operating within or adjacent to the Jedi Order, ordered the creation of millions of human beings, grown in tanks, engineered for obedience, designed to fight and die, and no one knew about it. The Jedi, who can sense disturbances in the Force across the galaxy, did not sense the creation of an entire army. The Republic, which governed thousands of star systems, did not notice the construction of a military force on an industrial scale. That is not an oversight. That is a symptom. The institutions that were supposed to be watching were already blind. There is a scene in Attack of the Clones that most people remember as a clumsy romance and then move past. Anakin returns to Tatooine because he has been having nightmares about his mother. He finds her at a Tusken Raider camp, tortured, dying. She dies in his arms, and Anakin kills every Tusken Raider in the camp, not just the warriors, the women, the children. He tells Padme what he did, and his face contorts with a mixture of grief and rage, and something that looks, horribly, like satisfaction. "They are like animals," he says, "and I slaughtered them like animals." This needs to be stated plainly. The future Darth Vader commits his first massacre in this film, and the person he confesses to does not leave him, does not report him, does not recoil from him the way anyone should recoil from a person who has just described murdering children. Padme comforts him. She holds him while he cries. And the film asks you to understand, not excuse, but understand, how a person reaches this point. Anakin was a slave. The Jedi freed him, but not his mother. He begged to go back. They told him to let go. And when the thing he feared most came true, when the visions he had been having became reality, when his mother died because no one in the galaxy with the power to help had bothered to help, Anakin did the only thing he knew how to do. He used his power to make the pain stop. The dark side does not feel evil from the inside. It feels necessary. Meanwhile, Anakin is assigned to protect Padme, and the two fall in love. This is forbidden by the Jedi Code. Attachment is the one thing the Jedi fear above all else, the one thing they believe leads to the dark side. And here is the central irony of the prequel trilogy. The Jedi are right that attachment without wisdom can become possessiveness. But their solution, which is to forbid all attachment entirely, to tell a young man that he must never love, never grieve, never need anyone, does not eliminate the danger. It drives it underground. Anakin loves Padme. He will always love Padme. The only question is whether he will love her in the light, where others can help him navigate that love, or in the dark, where it curdles into fear and desperation. The Jedi give him no choice. He chooses the dark. Their love story, which critics often cite as the weakest element of the prequel films, is more complex than its dialogue suggests. Anakin and Padme are both people who have lived their entire lives in service to institutions. She has been a queen, a senator, a public figure since childhood. He has been a slave, a student, a soldier since childhood. Neither of them has ever been allowed to simply be a person. Their relationship is the one space in their lives where they are not a senator or a Jedi. They are just two people in a room, trying to figure out what love feels like when you have never been taught how to love. The awkwardness, the stilted declarations, the uncertain gestures, read differently if you understand them not as bad writing, but as the behavior of two people who genuinely do not know how to be vulnerable. They are performing romance because they have never seen it modeled for them in any authentic way. Their secret wedding at the end of Attack of the Clones, on the balcony of a lake house on Naboo, witnessed only by R2-D2 and C-3PO, is one of the quietest and most ominous moments in the prequel trilogy. It is beautiful. The lake, the sunset, the music. But it is also the moment that seals both of their fates. The marriage is a secret, and secrets in the Star Wars timeline are never neutral. They are always load-bearing. This one will bear the weight of the entire Republic's collapse. But before that fall completes, there is a war to fight. Attack of the Clones ends with the Battle of Geonosis, the first engagement of what will become the Clone Wars. The Jedi discover that a separatist movement, led by Count Dooku, a former Jedi who left the Order and secretly became the Sith apprentice of Darth Sidious, has been building a massive droid army. The Republic, with no military of its own, is given emergency authorization to use the clone army that Obi-Wan discovered on Kamino. Chancellor Palpatine is granted emergency powers by the Galactic Senate, powers that were supposed to be temporary. Sit with that for a moment. Every piece of this was engineered by one man. Palpatine created the Separatist crisis through his apprentice Dooku. He arranged for the clone army to be built years in advance. He used the crisis he manufactured to acquire emergency powers that the Senate handed to him willingly. Both sides of the war, the Republic and the Separatists, are controlled by the same person. The soldiers who fight on both sides, the clones and the droids, are both his creations. The war itself is the weapon. Not the battles, not the territory gained or lost, but the war. The longer it lasts, the more power flows to the Chancellor. The more the Jedi are stretched thin, sent to the front lines, transformed from peacekeepers into generals, the further they drift from what they were supposed to be. This is the context for the Clone Wars, and understanding it changes everything about how you watch the animated series that bears its name. Star Wars: The Clone Wars, which premiered as an animated theatrical film on August 15, 2008, and began its television run on Cartoon Network on October 3rd of that year, is, by a significant margin, the most important expansion of the Star Wars timeline ever produced. Created by Dave Filoni under the direct supervision of George Lucas, the series ran for 5 seasons on Cartoon Network before being canceled in 2013. A 6th season was released on Netflix in 2014, and a 7th and final season premiered on Disney Plus in 2020, concluding on May 4th of that year. In total, 133 episodes were produced across 7 seasons, spanning the 3 years of the Clone Wars from 22 BBY to 19 BBY. What the series does, and the reason it matters so much for the timeline, is that it fills in the space between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith with a depth and complexity that the films alone could never achieve. It takes the Clone Wars from an abstraction, a conflict mentioned in the original trilogy and depicted in a handful of scenes in the prequels, and turns it into something felt, something lived, something that costs. The most important thing the Clone Wars does is make you care about the clones. In the films, they are faceless soldiers, identical men in identical armor, fighting a war they did not choose. The series gives them names: Rex, Fives, Echo, Jesse, Cody, Tup. It gives them personalities, friendships, moral codes. It shows you that despite being engineered for obedience, despite being literally manufactured to serve, these men develop individual identities. They paint their armor, they choose nicknames, they argue about tactics and debate philosophy, and mourn their dead. The series asks, quietly and persistently, a question that the Republic never asks: are these people? And if they are, what does it mean that they were created to be expendable? There is an arc in Season 4, set on the planet Umbara, that crystallizes this. A Jedi general named Pong Krell is assigned to lead a clone battalion, and he sends them into increasingly suicidal missions. The clones begin to suspect that something is wrong, that their general is not making mistakes, that he is deliberately spending their lives. When the truth is revealed, that Krell has turned to the dark side and views the clones as less than sentient, disposable tools to be used and discarded, the horror is not that a single Jedi has gone bad. The horror is that Krell is only saying out loud what the entire system has always implied. The clones were created to fight and die. The Republic calls them soldiers, but soldiers are people. These men were products, and the gap between those two words is where the moral rot lives. There is another arc, in the 6th season, that comes even closer to unraveling the entire conspiracy. A clone trooper named Tup experiences a premature activation of his inhibitor chip during the Battle of Ringo Vinda, causing him to kill a Jedi general named Tiplar in the middle of combat. His friend, a clone named Fives, investigates. Fives, who has been a central character since the earliest seasons, who fought on Kamino and on Umbara and on a dozen other battlefields, follows the trail from Tup's malfunction to the Kaminoan medical facilities to the chip itself. He discovers the truth. Every clone has an inhibitor chip. The chips are not what the Kaminoans claim they are. They are a weapon, waiting to be activated, designed to turn every clone in the army against the Jedi. Fives tries to warn people. He tries to tell Anakin and Rex. He gets a meeting with Chancellor Palpatine himself, and Palpatine, who of course knows exactly what the chips are because he designed the entire system, frames Fives as mentally unstable. Fives is shot by a fellow clone, Commander Fox, and dies in Rex's arms. His last words are a warning about the conspiracy, about the chips, about the fact that it goes all the way to the top, and nobody listens. Anakin does not believe that Palpatine could be involved. Rex files it away in the back of his mind, where it will stay until the moment he needs it most, and the galaxy spins forward toward the catastrophe that Fives died trying to prevent. That is not a small thing. The Clone Wars devoted an entire arc to showing that the truth was available, that someone found it, that someone tried to share it, and the system, the institutions, the people in power, chose not to hear it. The most devastating tragedies in the Star Wars timeline are not the ones caused by ignorance. They are the ones caused by willful refusal to see what is right in front of you. The Clone Wars also introduces one of the most significant characters in the entire Star Wars timeline, Ahsoka Tano. She first appears as Anakin Skywalker's Padawan learner, a 14-year-old Togruta assigned to him at the start of the series. She is brash, impulsive, eager to prove herself. She is, in many ways, exactly what Anakin was when Obi-Wan took him as an apprentice. And watching Anakin train her, watching him become a teacher and a mentor, adds a devastating layer to his eventual fall. Ahsoka's arc across the Clone Wars is one of the most carefully constructed character journeys in Star Wars. She grows from an inexperienced Padawan into a capable warrior and leader, and the series earns every step of that growth through specific missions, specific failures, specific moments of doubt and discovery. But the defining moment of her story comes in Season 5, when she is framed for a bombing at the Jedi Temple. The Jedi Council, her own order, the people who raised her, expels her without a proper investigation. They are so desperate to satisfy the political pressure coming from the Senate that they sacrifice one of their own. Anakin fights for her. He investigates the truth and proves her innocence. But the damage is done. Even after she is vindicated, even after the Council offers to reinstate her and frames her ordeal as a great trial, a test that she has passed, Ahsoka walks away. She leaves the Jedi Order, not because she has fallen to the dark side, not because she has lost her faith in the Force, because she has lost her faith in the institution that claimed to serve it. Think about what that means for Anakin, the one person he trained, the one person he mentored and protected and genuinely loved in the way the Jedi Code permitted, walked away from the Order because the Order failed her. And Anakin saw, up close, exactly how the Council treated her when politics demanded a sacrifice. He saw the Jedi choose expediency over justice. He saw them discard someone he cared about, and he stayed. He stayed not because he believed in the Order, but because he did not know how to leave. Because leaving would mean admitting that everything he had sacrificed, his mother, his freedom, his right to love openly, had been sacrificed for nothing. The Clone Wars contains dozens of arcs worth examining in detail, each one adding texture to the timeline. There is the Mortis arc in Season 3, where Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka encounter three Force wielders who represent the light side, the dark side, and the balance between them: the father, the daughter, and the son. Anakin is tested there, shown visions of his future, shown what he will become. The father erases those visions from Anakin's memory to preserve the timeline, but the experience leaves a mark that Anakin cannot name. There is the return of Darth Maul, who survived his bisection in The Phantom Menace and spent years in madness on a junkyard planet before being found by his brother, Savage Opress. Maul's return is one of the most audacious story choices in the Clone Wars. It takes a character who was largely a visual spectacle in the films and transforms him into a tragic, furious, deeply complex figure. Maul builds a criminal empire. He conquers Mandalore. He kills Obi-Wan's beloved, Duchess Satine Kryze, in front of him, not for strategic reasons, but purely to cause Obi-Wan pain. And through all of it, Maul is driven by a rage that the audience comes to understand as a different kind of dispossession. He was taken as a child, just like the Jedi take children, but he was taken by the Sith, trained as a weapon, used and discarded by Sidious. He has more in common with Anakin than either of them would ever admit. The Mandalore storyline across the Clone Wars is itself a critical thread in the larger timeline. Mandalore is a warrior culture that has been trying to reinvent itself as a pacifist society under the leadership of Duchess Satine. The tension between Mandalore's violent past and its peaceful present, between those who embrace the old ways and those who reject them, mirrors the larger tensions in the galaxy. Death Watch, a militant splinter group, seeks to restore Mandalore to its warrior roots. Maul exploits this, using Death Watch to seize power before betraying them. The planet becomes a battleground, and its fate resonates forward through the timeline into Rebels, into The Mandalorian, into Ahsoka, into the Book of Boba Fett. Mandalore is, in many ways, the Star Wars timeline in miniature, a culture caught between what it was and what it wants to be, constantly destroyed by those who refuse to let it change. The final arc of the Clone Wars, the Siege of Mandalore, is among the finest storytelling in all of Star Wars. It comprises the final 4 episodes of Season 7, Old Friends Not Forgotten, The Phantom Apprentice, Shattered, and Victory and Death. The arc runs parallel to the events of Revenge of the Sith, and the series makes that parallelism explicit. Ahsoka and Rex lead a siege against Maul's forces on Mandalore, while, simultaneously, Anakin falls to the dark side, Palpatine executes Order 66, and the Republic becomes the Empire. The Siege of Mandalore episodes are animated with a cinematic quality that matches or exceeds the films. Ahsoka confronts Maul in a lightsaber duel, and Maul, who has foreseen the coming darkness, tries to warn her. He tells her that Sidious has been grooming Anakin as his new apprentice. Ahsoka does not believe him. She cannot believe him. Believing him would mean accepting that everything she knew, everything she fought for, was built on a lie. And so she fights Maul instead of listening to him, and by the time the truth becomes undeniable, it is too late. Order 66 activates. The clones, every clone in the Grand Army of the Republic, receive a command hardwired into their biology by inhibitor chips implanted during their creation. The command is simple: execute the Jedi. And they do. Across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds, in the middle of battles and briefings and quiet moments between missions, the soldiers turn on the generals who led them. Men who served together for 3 years, who bled together, who saved each other's lives, turn their weapons on the people standing next to them and fire. Rex fights the chip. He fights it because somewhere in his mind, beneath the programming, a part of him remembers what Fives tried to tell him. He resists the command long enough to warn Ahsoka, to point her toward the truth about the chips. Ahsoka captures Rex, and with the help of astromech droids, surgically removes his inhibitor chip, restoring his free will. But the others do not have that chance. They cannot resist. And the series shows this not as a dramatic battle, but as a horror. Clones who were people an hour ago are now weapons. The thing the Republic always treated them as, the thing the system always implied they were, is now made literal. Star Wars, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, released on May 19, 2005, is the film that brings the prequel era to its devastating conclusion. It was the first Star Wars film to receive a PG-13 rating, and the rating is earned. This is the darkest chapter in the Skywalker saga, the point where every thread of the first 5 films converges into catastrophe. The film opens with the Battle of Coruscant. General Grievous, the cyborg commander of the Separatist droid army, has kidnapped Chancellor Palpatine. Anakin and Obi-Wan lead a rescue mission, and in the process, Anakin kills Count Dooku at Palpatine's urging. It is a test. Palpatine wants to see if Anakin will execute an unarmed prisoner. Anakin does. He hesitates. He knows it is wrong, but Palpatine is right there, whispering, and Dooku is kneeling, and the lightsabers are already lit, and it happens in a moment. The first step toward the dark side often does. There is a scene in Revenge of the Sith that most people remember as a meme and then move past. Palpatine appoints Anakin as his personal representative on the Jedi Council. The Council, reluctantly, accepts. But Mace Windu, speaking for the Council, tells Anakin that while he is granted a seat, he is not granted the rank of Master. Anakin protests. He says it is outrageous, unfair, and the scene is often played for laughs, treated as a petulant young man throwing a tantrum because he did not get the title he wanted. But think about what is actually happening. Anakin has been fighting a war for 3 years. He has killed a Sith Lord. He has saved the Chancellor. He has led armies and won battles that other Jedi could not. He is, by every measurable standard, one of the most capable Jedi alive. And the Council, which has never fully accepted him, which has always treated him as a danger rather than a gift, denies him the one recognition that would signal they see him as an equal. They do this, not because he is unqualified. They do this because they do not trust his closeness to Palpatine. They are using him as a spy, placing him on the Council specifically so he can report on the Chancellor, while simultaneously telling him he is not good enough to be a full member of the body that is asking him to betray his friend. The Jedi Council asks Anakin to spy on Palpatine. Palpatine asks Anakin to be his voice on the Council. Both institutions are using him as a tool. Neither sees him as a person. And Anakin, who has been a tool since the day Qui-gon found him, who was a slave, and then a weapon, and then a soldier, and never, not once, just a man, begins to crack. What follows is the most compressed and harrowing section of the timeline. Anakin learns that Padme is pregnant. He begins having visions of her death in childbirth, the same kind of visions he had about his mother, visions that came true. He is terrified, and the only person who offers him a solution is Palpatine, who reveals that the dark side of the Force contains the power to prevent death, that the Sith Lord Darth Plagueis discovered how to manipulate the Force to save those he loved from dying. This is the trap. The Jedi tell Anakin to let go of his attachments. Palpatine tells him he can save them. The Jedi offer acceptance of loss. Palpatine offers power over it. And Anakin, who has been losing people his entire life, who lost his mother because the Jedi told him to let go and he listened, who lost Ahsoka because the Order failed her, who has been fighting a war for 3 years that has taken everything from everyone around him. Anakin chooses power. He chooses the promise that he will never have to lose anyone again. And in doing so, he loses everything. The scene where Anakin kneels before Palpatine and becomes Darth Vader is quiet. There is no dramatic music, no thunder, just a man on his knees, exhausted and afraid, pledging himself to the dark side because he does not know what else to do. The film does not linger on this. It does not add spectacle to tell you how to feel. It just lets the moment sit there, small and terrible, and trusts that you understand what has happened. Order 66 follows, and in the film, it is a montage. Jedi after Jedi, cut down by the clones they trusted. Ki-Adi-Mundi on Megiddo, Aayla Secura on Felucia, Stas Ali on Seleucami. The scene is scored with mournful music and shot in slow motion, and each death lands with a specific weight because you can see the moment of betrayal on each Jedi's face. They do not understand. They cannot understand. The people fighting beside them are killing them, and there is no time to ask why. Anakin, now Vader, leads a battalion of clones into the Jedi Temple and kills everyone inside, including the younglings, the children training to be Jedi. The film does not show the act itself. It shows Anakin entering the room where the children are hiding. It shows a small boy stepping forward to ask for help. It shows Anakin's lightsaber igniting, and then it cuts away. What you do not see is worse than anything the film could have shown you, because your imagination fills in the horror with a specificity that no image could match. Obi-Wan and Yoda survive Order 66 and return to the temple to discover what happened. Obi-Wan watches the security recordings. He sees Anakin, his brother, his student, the boy he has raised since childhood, kneeling before Palpatine and slaughtering children. And Ewan McGregor's performance in that moment is one of the finest pieces of acting in the entire saga. He does not scream, he does not rage, he just breaks. Quietly, completely. Palpatine, meanwhile, addresses the Senate and declares the Republic reorganized into the First Galactic Empire. He frames the Jedi as traitors who attempted a coup. The Senate, The democratic body that was supposed to be the voice of the people applauds. They cheer the death of democracy. And Padme Amidala, watching from her seat, says a line that echoes forward through the entire timeline. So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause. There is a moment between the declaration of the Empire and the final duels that deserves attention. Anakin goes to Padme. He tells her that the Jedi tried to overthrow the Republic, that Palpatine will bring order to the galaxy, that they can rule together, reshape the galaxy as they see fit. And Padme looks at him and says the words that cut through every justification he has constructed. Anakin, you are breaking my heart. She is not just speaking about their relationship. She is speaking about the galaxy, about the Republic she served, about the principles she fought for in the Senate, the belief that democracy, however imperfect, was better than tyranny. Natalie Portman plays this scene with a stillness that is devastating. Padme does not argue. She does not rage. She looks at the man she loves and sees that he is already gone, that the person standing in front of her is wearing Anakin's face, but is no longer Anakin. And she goes to Mustafar to try to save him anyway, because that is what love does. It tries, even when trying is pointless. It reaches for someone, even when they have already fallen. On Mustafar, when Obi-Wan reveals himself on Padme's ship, Anakin's transformation completes itself. He force chokes Padme, the woman he turned to the dark side to save. He harms the one person he destroyed himself to protect. The irony is absolute. The fear of loss becomes the cause of loss. The desire to control fate becomes the instrument of fate's cruelest design. Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader to save Padme, and the first thing Darth Vader does is hurt her. That is the dark side in its purest form, not a different choice, a choice that consumes the person making it. The climax of Revenge of the Sith is two parallel duels. Yoda confronts Palpatine in the Senate chamber. Obi-Wan confronts Anakin on the volcanic planet Mustafar. Yoda fights the Emperor to a standstill but cannot defeat him, and his failure signals the end of the Jedi Order as it was. The old ways are not enough. They were never enough. Something will have to change. On Mustafar, Obi-Wan and Anakin fight their way through a collapsing mining facility, across rivers of lava, in a duel that is both physically spectacular and emotionally devastating. Obi-Wan takes the high ground. Anakin, consumed by rage and arrogance, leaps at him. Obi-Wan strikes, and Anakin falls, burning, at the edge of the lava, limbless and destroyed. He stands there, looking down at what is left of his student, and he screams the words that carry the weight of the entire prequel trilogy. You were the chosen one. It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them. Bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness. And then, quieter, you were my brother, Anakin. I loved you. He walks away. He leaves the man he raised to burn, and the film holds on Obi-Wan's face as he climbs the slope, and you can see the cost of that decision in every step. He does not look back. If he looks back, he will not be able to leave. And he has to leave, because there are children coming, Luke and Leia, who will need protecting. The future demands that Obi-Wan keep walking, but the past is burning behind him, and he will hear the sound of it for the rest of his life. Padme dies in childbirth, not from physical complications but, as the medical droid says, because she has lost the will to live. She gives birth to twins, Luke and Leia, who are separated and hidden. Luke goes to Tatooine, to be raised by his aunt and uncle on a moisture farm. Leia goes to Alderaan, to be raised by Senator Bail Organa and his wife. Obi-Wan goes into exile. Yoda goes into exile. Palpatine retrieves what is left of Anakin and rebuilds him as Darth Vader, encased in the black armor that will become the most iconic image in science fiction. The first thing Vader asks about is Padme. Palpatine tells him she is dead, that Vader killed her in his anger. And Vader, strapped to the operating table, still bleeding, still broken, screams. The scream is operatic. It is the sound of a man who has lost everything and knows, with absolute certainty, that he did it to himself. Every choice he made, every compromise, every step toward the dark side was taken in the name of saving Padme. And she is dead. He killed her. The dark side promised him power over death. It lied. It always lies. And now Anakin Skywalker is locked inside a machine that keeps him alive not as a reward but as a punishment, breathing through a respirator, seeing through lenses, trapped in a body that is more metal than flesh, serving a master he despises because he has nowhere else to go. The Republic is gone, the Jedi are gone, the galaxy belongs to the Empire, and the timeline enters what is known as the Dark Times. If you are enjoying this, take a moment to subscribe. It makes a real difference for the channel. The period between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope spans 19 years, and for a long time in Star Wars storytelling, those years were largely empty. The audience knew the beginning and the end. They knew the Republic fell and the rebellion rose. But the space between, the slow, grinding reality of life under Imperial rule, was left to the imagination. That has changed. In the past decade, some of the most powerful Star Wars stories ever told have been set in this period, and they have transformed the timeline from a series of events into something that feels lived in, something that costs. Star Wars: The Bad Batch, which premiered on Disney Plus on May 4, 2021, and ran for 3 seasons, concluding on May 1, 2024, picks up immediately after Order 66. It follows Clone Force 99, a squad of genetically modified clones, each with a unique mutation that gives them a specialized skill. Hunter, the leader, has enhanced senses. Wrecker has superhuman strength. Tech is a genius. Crosshair is an expert marksman. Echo, who joined the squad after being rescued from Separatist captivity, is a cyborg integrated with battle droid technology. And Omega, a young female clone they discover on Kamino, becomes the heart of the series. The Bad Batch does something essential for the timeline. It shows the transition from Republic to Empire not as a single moment but as a process. In the first episodes, the clones are still wearing Republic colors. The officers are still using Republic titles. But the machinery of oppression is already turning. Kamino, the planet where all the clones were created, is shut down. The Empire begins phasing out clones in favor of recruited stormtroopers, human beings who chose to serve rather than beings who were manufactured to. The clones, who fought and died for the Republic, are discarded, used up, disposed of. This is the pattern the timeline repeats. The institutions of power use people and then throw them away. The Republic used the clones. The Empire uses stormtroopers. The First Order will use children stolen from their families. The mechanism changes. The principle does not. The Bad Batch's third and final season, which premiered on February 21, 2024, confronts this pattern directly. The season follows the squad's attempt to rescue Omega from an Imperial cloning facility on the planet Tantis, where the Empire is conducting experiments on Force-sensitive individuals. The experiments are connected to Palpatine's obsession with cheating death, with extending his power beyond the limitations of a single body. The threads that will eventually lead to Snoke, to the cloning facilities on Exegol, to Palpatine's return in The Rise of Skywalker, begin here, in a laboratory where children are studied and discarded. The series ends with a meditation on what it means to be free. The clones, who were created to serve, who were given no choice about their existence, must decide who they want to be in a galaxy that no longer has a use for them. Some choose to fight. Some choose to disappear. Some choose to build new lives on quiet planets, far from the wars that define them. And the series treats each of those choices as equally valid, because freedom is not about making the right choice. It is about having the ability to choose at all. Crosshair's arc across the 3 seasons is the one that carries the most thematic weight. He is the member of the squad who complied with Order 66, who served the Empire willingly, who believed that following orders was its own kind of virtue. And the series does not redeem him through a single heroic act. It redeems him through the slow, painful process of recognizing what he participated in. He loses his hand. He is imprisoned by the Empire he served. He is forced to confront the fact that his loyalty was never reciprocated, that the system he believed in saw him as a tool, just like it saw every clone. His journey from compliance to resistance is one of the most honest depictions of de-radicalization in popular fiction. Tales of the Jedi, which premiered on Disney Plus on October 26, 2022, offers another perspective on this transition. The 6-episode anthology series tells 2 parallel stories across its runtime. 3 episodes following a young Ahsoka Tano, from her infancy through her early years as a Padawan, and 3 episodes following Count Dooku, from his time as a respected Jedi Master through his gradual disillusionment with the Order and his turn to the dark side. The Dooku episodes are particularly illuminating for the timeline, because they show that the Sith did not need to corrupt him. The Jedi Order's own failures pushed him away. He saw the same hypocrisy that Ahsoka would later see, the same institutional blindness, the same prioritization of politics over principle. The difference is that where Ahsoka walked away and found her own path, Dooku walked away and found Palpatine waiting for him. Solo, a Star Wars story, released on May 25, 2018, directed by Ron Howard, takes place approximately 10 years before A New Hope. It tells the origin story of Han Solo, from his escape from the shipbuilding world of Corellia, where he and his companion Chira are trapped in the service of a criminal gang, through his time as an Imperial infantry soldier, to his meeting with Chewbacca and Lando Calrissian, and the fateful Kessel Run that establishes the Millennium Falcon's legend. The film underperformed at the box office relative to other Star Wars releases, but what it does for the timeline is important. It shows the Empire from the ground level, not the Death Star, not the Senate, the mud, the trenches. Han Solo enlists in the Imperial Navy to escape Corellia, and what he finds is a meat grinder. The Empire is fighting wars of conquest on dozens of worlds, and the soldiers on the front lines are disposable. Han deserts. He meets Chewbacca in an Imperial prison pit, where the Wookiee is being used as an animal to execute deserters. The film frames their meeting not as a cute origin story, but as two slaves finding each other in the bowels of a machine that considers them both expendable. The film also introduces Lando Calrissian, played by Donald Glover, as a smooth-talking gambler and smuggler who owns the Millennium Falcon. The chemistry between Glover's Lando and Alden Ehrenreich's Han establishes a rivalry and friendship that will endure through the original trilogy. Lando loses the Falcon to Han in a card game, a game of sabacc, and the loss stings him for decades. The Falcon is more than a ship. It is a symbol of freedom, of possibility, of the ability to go anywhere and be anyone. Whoever owns the Falcon owns the promise of escape. L337, Lando's droid co-pilot, is one of the most unusual characters in any Star Wars film. She is an activist. She believes in droid rights. She agitates for the liberation of all droids, and the film plays this for humor, but there is a darker undercurrent. When L3 instigates a slave revolt in the Kessel mines, freeing both organic and droid captives, she is shot and fatally damaged. Lando, devastated, uploads her navigational database into the Falcon's computer to save what he can of her. L3 becomes part of the ship. Her consciousness, or some echo of it, is integrated into the Falcon's systems. The ship's legendary ability to navigate impossible routes, its seeming personality, its quirks and temperament, all of it can be traced back to a droid who believed that every sentient being deserved to be free. The Millennium Falcon is, in a sense, a monument to her. The Kessel Run sequence, where Han pilots the Millennium Falcon through an uncharted and deadly stretch of space to deliver stolen coaxium, is thrilling as spectacle. But it is also the moment where Han becomes Han. He makes the impossible choice. He flies the ship no one thinks can survive the route. He bets everything on himself because no one else in the galaxy has ever bet on him. The swagger that defines Han Solo in the original trilogy is not confidence. It is the armor of a person who learned very young that the only person who was going to save him was himself. Star Wars: Obi-Wan Kenobi, which premiered on Disney Plus on May 27, 2022, as a 6-episode limited series, is set 9 years before A New Hope and 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. Ewan McGregor returns as Obi-Wan, and Hayden Christensen returns as Darth Vader. The series finds Obi-Wan living in hiding on Tatooine, watching over the young Luke Skywalker from a distance. He has cut himself off from the Force. He has given up. He is a broken man, haunted by guilt, working in a meat processing plant, going through the motions of a life that no longer holds meaning. The series opens with a sequence depicting Order 66, from the perspective of a group of younglings being rushed through the Jedi Temple by their teacher as clones close in. It is a cold opening, a reminder of the violence that created the world this series inhabits. And then it jumps to 10 years later, and Obi-Wan is watching Luke from a distance, using macro binoculars, sitting on a ridge above the Lars homestead like a guardian angel who has forgotten how to fly. He is contacted by other Jedi survivors who need help. He turns them away. He cannot risk it, cannot risk exposing himself, cannot risk leading the Empire to Luke. He has reduced the scope of his world to a single task: watch the boy. And the task is both his purpose and his prison. The series forces Obi-Wan out of hiding when the young Princess Leia Organa, just 10 years old, is kidnapped by Inquisitors, the Empire's Jedi hunters, as bait to draw him out. What follows is a story about a man rediscovering his purpose, reconnecting with the Force, and confronting the ghost he has been running from. The confrontation between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, when it comes, is not a rematch in the conventional sense. It is a reckoning. Obi-Wan sees what Anakin has become. He hears the voice of his former student filtered through the mask's respirator, and in their final duel, when Obi-Wan strikes Vader's helmet and sees Anakin's scarred face beneath, the two actors convey more emotional devastation in a few seconds than most films achieve in their entire runtime. Vader says, referring to the destruction of Anakin Skywalker, essentially, that Obi-Wan did not kill Anakin. He did. And Obi-Wan, for the first time, accepts this. He lets go of the guilt. He says goodbye. And in doing so, he finds a kind of peace that allows him to become the person he needs to be for the next chapter of the story. The wise hermit on Tatooine, who will one day tell a young farm boy about his father and set the entire rebellion in motion. The young Leia in the series, played by Vivian Lyra Blair, is a revelation. She is sharp, defiant, precocious, and completely recognizable as the person who will grow up to lead a rebellion. The series establishes the bond between Obi-Wan and Leia, a bond that is never referenced in the original trilogy, but that, in retrospect, explains much. When Leia names her son Ben, she is not naming him after a stranger. She is naming him after the man who saved her life when she was 10 years old, the man who carried her through danger and told her stories about her parents and showed her, through his actions, what it meant to be brave even when you were afraid. The series also introduces Reva Sevender, the third sister, an inquisitor whose obsessive pursuit of Obi-Wan drives much of the plot. The series gradually reveals that Reva was one of the younglings in the temple during Order 66. She survived by hiding among the bodies. She joined the Inquisitors not because she was corrupted by the dark side, but because she wanted to get close enough to Darth Vader to kill him, to avenge the children who died that night. Her plan fails. She cannot kill Vader. He is too powerful. But her arc, the arc of a child who survived genocide and spent her life constructing an identity around revenge, only to discover that revenge cannot give her what she needs, is one of the most quietly devastating stories in the Imperial era. And then there is Andor. Star Wars Andor, created by Tony Gilroy, premiered on Disney Plus on September 21, 2022. Its first season consists of 12 episodes set 5 years before the events of Rogue One. A second and final season of 12 episodes premiered on April 22, 2025. And there is a strong argument to be made that Andor is the single most important piece of Star Wars storytelling since the original trilogy. The series follows Cassian Andor, played by Diego Luna, a man with no connection to the Force, no special destiny, no prophecy. He is a thief, a drifter, a man who has spent his life on the margins of the galaxy, surviving by his wits, trusting no one, believing in nothing. And the series is about how a person like that, a person with every reason to walk away, comes to believe in something larger than himself, how he becomes a rebel. What makes Andor extraordinary is what it strips away. There are no Jedi, no lightsabers, no Force visions or ancient prophecies. There is just the Empire, in all its banal, bureaucratic, grinding cruelty, and the people who live under it. The series shows you what fascism actually looks like at the street level, not stormtroopers marching in formation, but permits and checkpoints and informants, and the slow erosion of every freedom that people once took for granted. It shows you the Imperial Security Bureau, the intelligence apparatus that monitors the galaxy's population, and it gives you characters within that apparatus who are not monsters. They are professionals. They believe they are doing important work. They go home to their families. And they are the instruments of oppression, not because they are evil, but because the system they serve is evil, and they have chosen not to notice. There is an episode in the first season, the 6th episode, The Eye, where Cassian participates in a rebel heist on the planet Aldhani. timed to coincide with a rare celestial event. The mission succeeds, but people die. Good people. And the series does not flinch from the cost. It does not present rebellion as glamorous or heroic. It presents it as expensive, frightening, morally compromising. Cassian does terrible things in service of a cause he does not yet fully believe in, and the show asks you to sit with the discomfort of that rather than resolving it with a speech about freedom. The prison arc in the first season, episodes 8 through 10, is some of the finest television ever made, Star Wars or otherwise. Cassian is arrested on a trumped-up charge and sent to a facility on the planet Narkina 5, where prisoners are used as forced labor, assembling components they do not understand, unaware that the products of their labor serve the Empire's war machine. The prison is clean, sterile, efficient. The floors shock anyone who touches them. The prisoners are organized into work units and pitted against each other for meager privileges. It is the Empire in miniature, a system that turns people into products, a machine that converts human labor into imperial power and discards the humans when they are used up. The prison operates on a point system. Work well, earn points. Earn enough points, get released. The prisoners believe this. They cling to it. It is the one thread of hope the system offers them, and they organize their entire existence around it. They compete with each other. They police each other. They enforce the rules more strictly than the guards do, because the guards barely need to be present. The system has made the prisoners into their own wardens. And then word reaches the floor that the prisoners on a higher level were not released when they completed their sentences. They were redistributed to another floor. The points were a lie. The release was a lie. The entire system of incentives and cooperation and hope was engineered to keep the prisoners compliant, and it worked. And the moment it stops working, the moment the lie is exposed, everything changes. Cassian escapes. He escapes because a fellow prisoner named Kino Loy, played with devastating understatement by Andy Serkis, makes the choice to resist. Kino, who spent the entire arc enforcing the prison's rules, who believed that compliance would save him, discovers that the Empire never intended to release any of them. They were always going to die there. And in that moment, when compliance is revealed as a lie, Kino leads the revolt. He speaks to the entire prison over the intercom, and his words are a thesis statement for the entire series. One way out. But Kino Loy cannot swim. The escape route requires swimming through water to reach the sea. And in the final moments of the prison break, as the other prisoners leap into the water and swim toward freedom, Kino stands at the edge and cannot follow. The man who gave the speech that freed everyone cannot free himself. The show does not explain what happens to him. It does not show a rescue or a drowning. It simply holds on his face, standing at the edge, watching others escape. And that image, that specific image of a man who liberated others and was left behind, is perhaps the most powerful single frame in all of Star Wars television. That is what Andor understands about the Star Wars timeline that many other entries miss. Rebellion is not a single dramatic act. It is a process. It is 1,000 small choices, 1,000 moments where someone decides that the cost of compliance is higher than the cost of resistance. Cassian does not wake up one morning and decide to be a hero. He is pushed and pushed and pushed until standing still is no longer an option. There is another monologue in the first season that demands attention, delivered by Stellan Skarsgård as Luthen Rael, a rebel leader who operates behind the facade of a Coruscant antiques dealer. In the 11th episode, Luthen is asked what he has sacrificed for the cause, and his answer is one of the most searing pieces of writing in all of Star Wars. He lists what he has given up: calm, kindness, kinship, love, the inner peace of a man who does not have to live with the things he has done. He says he has made himself into a mask so complete that no one, not even himself, can see what is underneath. He has become the thing he is fighting against in order to fight against it, and he knows this, and he does it anyway, because he believes the cause is larger than his soul. That speech is the dark mirror of everything the rebellion will become. In the original trilogy, the rebellion is presented as noble, clean, morally uncomplicated. Andor shows you the people who built that rebellion, and they are not clean. They are compromised and haunted and willing to do terrible things because they have weighed the cost and decided that a flawed resistance is better than a perfect submission. The series does not judge them for this. It does not celebrate them either. It simply shows you the math and lets you sit with it. There is also Dedra Meero, played by Denise Gough, an ambitious officer in the Imperial Security Bureau, who serves as the Empire's counterpoint to Cassian. She is competent. She is driven. She believes in the system she serves, and the series goes out of its way to show that she is not stupid or evil. She is a talented professional operating within a framework that rewards efficiency and punishes doubt. She climbs the ranks of the ISB not through cruelty, but through intelligence. And the fact that her intelligence is deployed in service of a fascist regime is the point. The Empire does not need its officers to be sadists. It needs them to be good at their jobs. That is far more terrifying. Mon Mothma, played by Genevieve O'Reilly, is the senator from Chandrila who will eventually become the leader of the Rebel Alliance and the first Chancellor of the New Republic. In Andor, she is still operating within the system, using her position in the Imperial Senate to quietly funnel money and resources to the nascent rebellion. The series shows the cost of this double life. Her marriage is strained. Her daughter is being radicalized by Imperial youth programs. She is hemorrhaging money and being forced into alliances with criminal financiers to keep the rebellion funded. The pristine, composed leader, who will one day stand before the rebel fleet and announce the assault on the second Death Star, is, in Andor, a woman drowning in compromises and terrified that someone will notice. The second season of Andor, which premiered on April 22, 2025, covers the 4 years between the first season and Rogue One, with each 3-episode arc spanning 1 year. The structure mirrors Cassian's transformation, from reluctant participant to committed revolutionary, to the man who will lead the mission to steal the Death Star plans. The season builds toward the events of Rogue One with the weight and inevitability of something that cannot be stopped, because by the time Cassian reaches Scarif, he is no longer the person he was. The galaxy changed him. The Empire changed him. The people who fought beside him and died beside him changed him. And he cannot go back. Star Wars Rebels, which premiered on Disney Channel on October 3, 2014, with a 1-hour television film before moving to Disney XD for its regular run, aired for 4 seasons, concluding on March 5, 2018. Created by Dave Filoni, Simon Kinberg, and Carrie Beck, the animated series follows the crew of the Ghost, a small band of rebels operating on and around the planet Lothal. There is Hera Syndulla, the pilot and leader, whose father was a hero of the Clone Wars. There is Kanan Jarrus, a Jedi who survived Order 66 as a child and has spent his adult life hiding his abilities. There is Sabine Wren, a Mandalorian warrior and artist. There is Zeb Orrelios, one of the last survivors of the Lasat species, whose people were nearly wiped out by the Empire. There is Chopper, an astromech droid with a personality as cantankerous as it is loyal. And there is Ezra Bridger, a 14-year-old orphan from Lothal who discovers he is Force-sensitive and becomes Kanan's apprentice. Rebels is, on its surface, a show for younger audiences. The character designs are stylized. The tone is lighter than the Clone Wars, especially in its early episodes. But that lighter surface conceals a show that is willing to go to remarkably dark places when the story demands it. Kanan Jarrus, whose real name is Caleb Dume, is a Jedi who survived Order 66 as a teenager by watching his master, Depa Billaba, sacrifice herself so he could run. He spent his adult life hiding, drinking, drifting, pretending the Force did not exist. And the series shows, with patience and specificity, what it looks like for a person who has been running from trauma to stop running. Kanan is blinded by Darth Maul in the Season 2 finale. He loses his sight permanently, and the series does not reverse this. He does not get cybernetic eyes. He does not discover a Force technique that restores his vision. He is blind for the rest of the series, and the story shows how he adapts, how he deepens his connection to the Force, how losing his physical sight forces him to see more clearly through the Force than he ever did with his eyes. And in the 4th season, Kanan sacrifices himself to save Hera and the rest of the crew, holding back an explosion with the Force. And in his final moment, the Force restores his sight just long enough for him to see the woman he loves one last time. That death is one of the most devastating moments in all of Star Wars animation. It is not a battle death. It is not a heroic last stand in the traditional sense. It is a man who was afraid his entire life, afraid of the Empire, afraid of the Force, afraid of what it meant to be a Jedi, finally finding the courage to be exactly what he was always meant to be. And it costs him everything. Rebels does something crucial for the timeline. It shows the rebellion before it was the rebellion. In the early seasons, the Ghost Crew operates independently, unaware that other cells of resistance exist across the galaxy. They are not fighting a war. They are committing acts of sabotage and survival on a single planet, stealing food, disrupting Imperial operations, helping people who have been displaced. The scale is small, intimate, and that intimacy is what gives the series its power, because it means every loss is personal. The series also shows the rebellion's relationship with the political establishment. Senator Bail Organa of Alderaan, who took in baby Leia at the end of Revenge of the Sith, appears as a key rebel organizer. He connects the Ghost Crew to the larger network of rebel cells that are operating independently across the galaxy. The idea that the rebellion was not a single organization, but a network of independent cells, each operating with limited knowledge of the others for security reasons, is one of the most important structural concepts in the timeline. It explains how the rebellion survived for as long as it did. If one cell was captured, it could not betray the others. If one planet was raided, the network endured. The rebellion was designed to be resilient in the way that the Republic was not: distributed, flexible, and impossible to destroy with a single strike. Hera Syndulla, voiced by Vanessa Marshall, deserves special mention. She is the leader of the Ghost Crew, the best pilot any of them have ever seen, and the moral center of the series. She is a Twi'lek from Ryloth, a planet with a long history of resistance against occupation. Her father, Cham Syndulla, was a resistance fighter during the Clone Wars, a character who appeared in the Clone Wars series. Hera grew up in a house where rebellion was not a choice. It was the family business. And the show explores the tension between Hera's inherited duty to fight and her personal desire for a normal life. A home, a family. She and Kanan love each other. The show is quiet about it, showing it through glances and gestures and the way they stand next to each other rather than through declarations. And when Kanan dies, Hera's grief is the most grounded, most human emotion in the series. She does not stop fighting. She does not give up, but something in her goes quiet, and the show respects the silence. The series also reintroduces characters from the Clone Wars and deepens their stories in ways that resonate across the entire timeline. Ahsoka Tano appears in Season 2, now operating under the codename Fulcrum as an intelligence operative for the nascent Rebel Alliance. Her presence connects the Clone Wars era to the Rebellion era and sets up one of the most powerful moments in Star Wars storytelling: her confrontation with Darth Vader. In the Season 2 finale, Twilight of the Apprentice, Ahsoka faces Vader in a Sith temple on the planet Malachor. She has spent years refusing to believe that Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader. She has carried that denial like armor, and when she strikes his mask and sees Anakin's eye underneath, the same reveal that Obi-Wan will experience in his own series, she cannot deny it anymore. Anakin's voice, distorted but recognizable, calls her name, and she makes her choice. She will not leave him, not this time. The duel ends ambiguously, with the temple collapsing around them. Ahsoka's fate is left unresolved until the series' 4th season, when Ezra Bridger uses a mystical portal called the World Between Worlds to reach through time and pull Ahsoka out of the moment before Vader's killing blow lands. Think about what that means. The Star Wars timeline includes a mechanism for reaching through time, and the first thing a character does with it is save the life of someone who was about to be murdered by the person she loved most. That is not a plot device. That is a statement about what this story believes. Grand Admiral Thrawn, one of the most iconic villains in Star Wars history, originally created by author Timothy Zahn for the 1991 novel Heir to the Empire, appears in Rebels as the primary antagonist of Seasons 3 and 4. Thrawn is different from other Imperial villains. He is not cruel for cruelty's sake. He is not fanatical. He is brilliant, methodical, and genuinely interested in understanding the cultures he is ordered to destroy. He studies art. He analyzes his enemies through their creative expression. He is, in many ways, the most dangerous kind of villain, one who approaches oppression with intellectual curiosity rather than rage. The series finale of Rebels resolves the Lothal conflict in an unexpected way. Ezra summons the Purrgil, massive spacefaring creatures capable of hyperspace travel, who carry Thrawn's Star Destroyer, with both Ezra and Thrawn aboard, into the unknown. They disappear. Both of them, hero and villain, vanish from the galaxy. And the epilogue, set after the fall of the Empire, shows Ahsoka and Sabine setting out to find Ezra and bring him home. That search is the foundation of the live-action series Ahsoka, which premiered on Disney Plus on August 22, 2023, starring Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano and Natasha Liu Bordizzo as Sabine Wren. The series picks up approximately 9 years after the Battle of Yavin, during the New Republic era. Lars Mikkelsen reprises his voice role from Rebels as Grand Admiral Thrawn in live action, and the series follows Ahsoka and Sabine's attempt to prevent Thrawn's return from the distant galaxy where he and Ezra have been stranded. The series is, in many ways, the live-action continuation of Star Wars Rebels, and it assumes familiarity with that show's characters and conflicts. Ahsoka has changed since we last saw her. She is older, more guarded. The youthful energy that defined her in the Clone Wars has been tempered by decades of loss and survival. She has outlived most of the people she loved. She has seen the Jedi Order fall. She has watched the Empire rise and fall, and the New Republic struggle to establish itself. And she carries all of that history in the way she moves, the way she speaks, the careful distance she keeps from everyone around her. Rosario Dawson plays Ahsoka with a stillness that communicates volumes. This is a woman who has learned that getting close to people is dangerous, not because people are dangerous, but because the galaxy they live in takes people away. The series introduces the concept of travel between galaxies, expanding the Star Wars universe beyond the boundaries of a single galaxy for the first time in live-action storytelling. It raises the stakes of the New Republic era by establishing that Thrawn, if he returns, could unite the scattered remnants of the Empire into a force powerful enough to challenge the fragile new government. And it deepens the relationship between Ahsoka and Sabine, showing the tension between a master who struggles to trust and an apprentice who has never been able to let go. The world between worlds, the portal through time that Ezra discovers in Rebels, deserves special attention in the context of the timeline. It is a place between places, a realm within the Force where all moments in time exist simultaneously, where pathways connect different points in history, where voices from the past and the future echo together. The Emperor himself tries to access it, recognizing that control over time would be the ultimate power. And the fact that the story introduces this concept and then closes the door on it, with Ezra destroying the temple entrance to prevent the Emperor from entering, tells you something about the show's moral compass. The ability to change the past exists in the Star Wars universe. It is real, and the heroes choose not to use it because they understand that manipulating time is just another form of the same desire for control that created the Empire in the first place. You cannot fix the past. You can only make the future worth the cost. There are also the Inquisitors, the Empire's Jedi Hunters, who appear prominently in Rebels and in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. They are former Jedi who survived Order 66 and were turned to the dark side through torture and manipulation. The Grand Inquisitor, the Second Sister, the Fifth Brother, the Seventh Sister. Each of them is a living monument to what the Empire does to Force-sensitive people who fall into its hands. The Jedi took children and trained them as peacekeepers. The Empire takes the survivors and twists them into weapons against their own kind. The pattern of institutional exploitation runs through every era of the timeline. Rogue One, a Star Wars story, released on December 16, 2016, and directed by Gareth Edwards, is the bridge between the Dark Times and the original trilogy. Set immediately before A New Hope, it tells the story of the mission to steal the plans for the Death Star, and it is, without exaggeration, one of the most devastating war films ever made within the framework of a major franchise. Gareth Edwards, who had previously directed a Godzilla reboot, approached Rogue One as a war film. He deliberately omitted the opening crawl and the transitional screen wipes that define the Skywalker saga, signaling from the first frame that this is a different kind of Star Wars story. It is grittier, more grounded. The camera shakes during battle sequences. The lighting is naturalistic. The characters are not archetypes. They are people, complicated and compromised and afraid, doing what they can in a galaxy that offers them no guarantees. The film follows Jyn Erso, played by Felicity Jones, whose father, Galen Erso, was the scientist forced to design the Death Star. Galen deliberately built a flaw into the station, a vulnerability in the reactor that could be exploited if the rebels could obtain the plans. Jyn is recruited by the Rebel Alliance, and, alongside Cassian Andor, the droid K2SO, the blind warrior Chirrut Imwe, his companion Baze Malbus, and the defecting Imperial pilot Bodhi Rook, leads a desperate mission to the Imperial data vault on the planet Scarif. Chirrut Imwe, played by Donnie Yen, is a blind warrior monk who believes in the Force but is not a Jedi. He repeats a mantra, "I am one with the Force is with me." He carries no lightsaber. He has no formal training. He is simply a man who believes, deeply and completely, in something he cannot prove. And his faith, in a galaxy that has been stripped of the Jedi, in an era when the Force has been dismissed as superstition by the Empire, is an act of defiance. Believing in something invisible when the visible world is this dark is its own kind of courage. Baze Malbus, played by Jiang Wen, is Chirrut's partner and counterpoint. He was once a devout guardian of the Kyber Temple on Jedha, like Chirrut. But unlike Chirrut, Baze has lost his faith. He carries a massive repeating blaster instead of a staff. He fights with anger and precision, and no hope. And the dynamic between them, the believer and the skeptic, the man who still prays and the man who has given up praying, is one of the most quietly powerful relationships in any Star Wars film. K2SO, voiced by Alan Tudyk, is a reprogrammed Imperial security droid who has been given free will by Cassian. He says exactly what he thinks, which is often statistically discouraging. He is funny, in a dry, fatalistic way, and his humor serves a purpose. It is the gallows humor of someone who can calculate the odds and chooses to fight anyway. When he dies holding a door to buy Jyn and Cassian time, his death is not played for pathos. It is played for function. He does his job. He holds the door. That is enough. Everyone dies. That is the thing about Rogue One that sets it apart from every other Star Wars film. There is no rescue. There is no last-minute escape. Every member of Rogue One gives their life to transmit the Death Star plans to the Rebel fleet above. Chirrut walks through a hail of blaster fire, repeating his mantra about the Force, and is struck down after activating the Master Switch. Baze, who has spent the entire film as a skeptic, picks up Chirrut's mantra and fights until he falls beside him. Bodhi is killed in the cargo shuttle. K2SO is destroyed holding a door so that Jyn and Cassian can reach the data vault. And Jyn and Cassian, having transmitted the plans, sit on the beach and watch the Death Star fire. They hold each other as the blast wave approaches, and the film does not cut away from this. It lets you watch two people who saved the galaxy die, knowing they will never see it saved. The film earned over $1 billion worldwide and became a critical and commercial triumph. But its importance to the timeline goes beyond box office numbers. Rogue One proved that Star Wars could tell a story with no chosen one, no Force-sensitive protagonist, no lightsaber duel, and make it feel like the most important story in the galaxy. It proved that the unnamed soldiers, the people who fight and die in the margins of history, deserve their own epic. The final sequence of Rogue One connects directly to the opening of A New Hope. The Death Star plans are transmitted to a Rebel ship, which is immediately boarded by Darth Vader. The last scene of Rogue One is Vader, cutting through Rebel soldiers in a corridor, a sequence of pure terror that reminds the audience what the heroes of Rogue One died fighting against. The plans are passed, hand to hand, through a locked door to a woman in white, Princess Leia. She takes the data card, and someone asks her what they have been given. Hope, she says. That single word carries the weight of every death in Rogue One, every sacrifice on the beach of Scarif, every moment of terror and courage and despair that brought the plans to this point. Hope is not an abstraction in the Star Wars timeline. It is a physical object, a data card, passed from hand to hand by people who died to deliver it. Hope costs. It has always cost, and the people who pay that cost rarely live to see what they purchased. The connection between Rogue One and A New Hope is seamless. The film was designed to lead directly into the opening of the 1977 original, and it does so with a precision that makes the two films feel like a single, continuous story. When you watch A New Hope after Rogue One, the opening crawl reads differently. Rebel spaceships, striking from a hidden base, have won their first victory against the evil Galactic Empire, is no longer an abstract statement of backstory. It is the Battle of Scarif. Those rebel spaceships are the ships you just watched fight and die. That first victory is the victory that Jin and Cassian and Chirrut and Baze and Bodhi and K2SO gave their lives for. The opening crawl of A New Hope is their eulogy, and the original trilogy begins. Star Wars, later retitled Star Wars, Episode 4, A New Hope, was released on May 25, 1977. It was directed by George Lucas, produced on a budget of $11 million by 20th Century Fox, and it changed everything. The film was not expected to succeed. The studio had little faith in it. Lucas himself was so anxious about the release that he left the country. The effects were groundbreaking, created by Industrial Light and Magic, the visual effects company Lucas founded specifically for this film, because no existing company could produce what he needed. The sound design, by Ben Burt, created an auditory vocabulary that has become part of the cultural lexicon: the hum of a lightsaber, the scream of a TIE fighter, the breathing of Darth Vader. And John Williams composed a score that stands as one of the greatest achievements in film music, a symphonic work that uses leitmotifs, recurring musical themes attached to specific characters and ideas, to tell the story through sound as much as through image. Not just cinema, not just science fiction. The way stories are told, the way films are marketed, the way audiences experience mythology. Every blockbuster franchise that exists today, every shared universe, every cinematic saga that spans decades traces its lineage back to this film. The film opens with a Star Destroyer filling the screen, pursuing a tiny rebel ship over the desert planet of Tatooine. Princess Leia, who has hidden the Death Star plans inside the astromech droid R2-D2, is captured by Darth Vader. R2-D2 and the protocol droid C-3PO escape to the planet's surface, where they are found by a moisture farmer's nephew, a boy named Luke Skywalker. George Lucas built this story on the bones of something ancient. In the early 1970s, Lucas was a young filmmaker in San Francisco, struggling to find a shape for the space opera he had been dreaming about since childhood. He had seen Akira Kurosawa's samurai films. He had absorbed Flash Gordon serials. He had grown up on westerns and World War II movies, and the mythological storytelling of cultures around the world. But the piece that brought it all together was a book by Joseph Campbell called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, published in 1949. Campbell's thesis was that the myths of every culture share a common structure, what he called the monomyth, or the hero's journey. A young person in an ordinary world receives a call to adventure. They cross a threshold into the unknown. They face trials. They encounter mentors and enemies. They descend into the darkest place. And they return, transformed, carrying something that their community needs. Lucas read Campbell and found the architecture for his story. He would later say that he might never have finished Star Wars without Campbell's work, that it gave form and coherence to the ideas he had been circling for years. The two men eventually met and became friends. Campbell visited Skywalker Ranch. They discussed mythology and the role of stories in human development. And after Campbell's death, Lucas credited him as perhaps his last great mentor. The hero's journey is not just an influence on Star Wars. It is the spine. Every major character in the saga, Luke, Anakin, Rey, Ahsoka, even Han Solo, follows some version of Campbell's pattern, and the original film, A New Hope, follows it most closely of all. Luke is 19 years old. He lives with his aunt and uncle. He wants to leave Tatooine and apply to the Imperial Academy, not because he supports the Empire, but because the Academy is the only way off the planet he can imagine. He is restless and frustrated and trapped, and when he finds Leia's message hidden in R2-D2, a holographic recording begging for help from someone named Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke does not understand what he has found. He does not know that the old hermit living in the desert wastes is the same Obi-Wan Kenobi who fought in the Clone Wars. He does not know that his father was a Jedi. He does not know that the galaxy is at war, and that the recording in the droid's memory is the first link in a chain that will lead to the destruction of the Empire's most powerful weapon. Luke discovers R2-D2's recording by accident, and the holographic image of Princess Leia, projected in miniature, pleading for help, becomes one of the defining images of the saga. "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You are my only hope." The message is directed at a specific person, but it functions as a universal call to action. Everyone who watches Star Wars for the first time is hearing that message for the first time alongside Luke. The call to adventure, in Campbell's framework, arrives in the form of a woman in white asking for help. And Luke, who has spent his entire life waiting for something to happen, who has stood in front of that sunset and ached for meaning, does not know how to answer it. Not yet. Obi-Wan tells Luke the truth, or a version of it. He tells him that his father was a Jedi Knight who fought in the Clone Wars and was betrayed and murdered by a young Jedi named Darth Vader. This is not technically true. It is the truth that Obi-Wan can bear to tell. The full truth, that Anakin Skywalker did not die but fell, that he is Darth Vader, that Obi-Wan left him burning on the banks of a lava river, is too much. Too much for Luke, too much for Obi-Wan. And so the lie serves as a bridge, carrying Luke from ignorance to action, without the weight of the full horror. Luke's aunt and uncle are killed by Imperial stormtroopers searching for the droids, and in that moment, every tie Luke has to his old life is severed. He has nothing left on Tatooine, nothing to stay for. He tells Obi-Wan he wants to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi, like his father before him, and the journey begins. Obi-Wan gives Luke his father's lightsaber, the weapon which the audience knows was wielded by Anakin Skywalker, which was used to kill younglings in the Jedi Temple, which was cut from Anakin's hand on the banks of the Mustafar lava river, is presented as a noble inheritance. Your father wanted you to have this when you were old enough. That is not exactly true either, but it is the lie that sets Luke on his path, and sometimes the truth is less important than the direction a lie points you in. They hire Han Solo and Chewbacca to transport them to Alderaan. Han Solo is one of the most important characters in the Star Wars timeline, not because of what he does, but because of what he represents. He does not believe in the Force. He does not care about the Republic or the Empire or the Rebellion. He cares about himself and his ship and getting paid. He is cynicism incarnate, the voice of everyone who has given up on causes and ideologies and the idea that fighting for something abstract is worth the cost. And the story does not condemn him for this. It understands him. In a galaxy that has been through the Clone Wars, Order 66, and 2 decades of Imperial rule, cynicism is not a character flaw. It is a survival strategy. Han's arc across the original trilogy, from mercenary to general, from skeptic to believer, is the arc of a man who discovers that caring about something larger than himself is not naive. It is necessary. But the discovery takes time, and the film respects the time it takes. Chewbacca, Han's co-pilot and closest friend, is a Wookiee from the planet Kashyyyk. The Wookiees were enslaved by the Empire after the rise of the New Order, used as forced labor in Imperial construction projects. Chewbacca's loyalty to Han is rooted in a life debt, a Wookiee tradition, but the series makes clear that it has grown beyond obligation into genuine love. They are family, and their partnership, the cynic and the loyalist, the fast talker and the strong silent companion, is one of the great pairings in cinema. They arrive to find Alderaan destroyed, blown apart by the Death Star as a demonstration of the Empire's power. The destruction of Alderaan is one of the most important moments in the timeline, and it is easy to move past it because the film does not linger. An entire planet, billions of people, a civilization with its own history, its own art, its own languages and traditions, and children who had not yet learned to walk. Gone, in an instant, because Grand Moff Tarkin, played by Peter Cushing with a cold precision that defines Imperial evil, wanted to make a point. The Death Star is not a weapon designed for military targets. It is a weapon designed for terror. Its purpose is not to destroy rebel bases. Its purpose is to make resistance unthinkable by demonstrating that the cost of defiance is extinction. Leia watches Alderaan die. She is standing on the bridge of the Death Star, held in place by Imperial officers, forced to see her entire world destroyed as punishment for her involvement with the rebellion. And the film, remarkably, does not give her time to grieve. There is no scene where Leia processes this loss. She is rescued from her cell. She leads the escape through the garbage compactor. She shoots stormtroopers. She flies to the rebel base. She helps plan the assault on the Death Star. The film simply does not stop, and that absence, that missing scene of grief, tells you something about Leia Organa that every subsequent appearance confirms. She processes pain by working. She survives by being useful. She does not allow herself the luxury of falling apart because there is always another crisis, another battle, another person who needs her to be strong. That is not a personality trait. That is a scar. They are captured by the station and rescue Princess Leia. The rescue of Leia from the Death Star is the sequence where the film's four main characters, Luke, Han, Leia, and Chewbacca, become a team. They argue. They bicker. They improvise wildly in the face of impossible odds. Leia, who has been imprisoned and tortured and forced to watch her planet die, grabs a blaster from a stormtrooper and shoots her way out of the detention block. She is not a damsel in distress. She never was. She is a leader who happens to be in prison, and the first thing she does when she is free is take charge of her own rescue. Somebody has to save our skins, she tells Han and Luke, and from that moment forward, there is no question about who is running this operation. The trash compactor scene, where the heroes are trapped in a garbage disposal unit with the walls closing in, is a moment of pure cinematic invention. It is terrifying and funny and claustrophobic, and it creates a sense of camaraderie among the characters that no amount of dialogue could achieve. They survive because of C-3PO and R2-D2, the two droids who have been the audience's point of entry since the opening scene. The droids save the day. The smallest, most overlooked members of the group are the ones who make the difference. That is a pattern the Star Wars timeline returns to again and again. Obi-Wan confronts Vader one last time, and in their duel, Obi-Wan allows himself to be struck down. He does not fight to survive. He fights to distract Vader long enough for Luke and the others to escape. And as he falls, he vanishes, becoming one with the Force, completing a journey that began decades earlier on Tatooine with a different boy and a different hope. Han Solo, who left the Rebel base with his payment, intending to pay off Jabba the Hutt and resume his life as a smuggler, comes back. He returns at the crucial moment, flying the Millennium Falcon into the trench to clear Vader off Luke's tail. He comes back because he could not leave, because the cynicism he wore like armor cracked just enough to let something else in, something that felt, for the first time in his life, like belonging. Han Solo does not become a rebel because he believes in the cause. He becomes a rebel because he finds people worth fighting beside. The climax of A New Hope is the Battle of Yavin. Luke, flying an X-Wing starfighter, makes a trench run on the Death Star, targeting the exhaust port that Galen Erso built into the design. Vader is on his tail. The shot is impossible. And then Luke hears Obi-Wan's voice. "Use the Force, Luke." He turns off his targeting computer. He trusts, and the torpedo hits. The Death Star explodes. The film earned over $460 million worldwide on its initial release, surpassing Jaws as the highest-grossing film of all time. It was nominated for 10 Academy Awards and won 6. It launched a franchise that would eventually encompass television, novels, comics, video games, theme parks, and a merchandising empire worth billions. It was inducted into the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress for being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. And it did all of this because, at its core, it told a simple story simply. A boy heard a call. He answered it. He trusted something he could not see, and the impossible shot went in. The Battle of Yavin becomes the defining moment of the Star Wars calendar, the event from which all other events are measured. BBY, before the Battle of Yavin. ABY, after the Battle of Yavin. It is the moment the galaxy changed, not because one battle station was destroyed, but because the galaxy learned it could be. The Empire was not invincible. It could be hurt. It could bleed. And once people knew that, the fight was already different. There is a 3-year gap between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back in the timeline, and in that gap, the rebellion grows but does not thrive. The destruction of the Death Star was a symbolic victory more than a strategic one. The Empire is vast. Its military resources are essentially unlimited. Destroying one battle station, however powerful, does not change the fundamental equation. The rebellion is still outnumbered, still outgunned, still operating from hidden bases on the fringes of the galaxy, surviving on stolen supplies and borrowed time. The victory at Yavin did one thing that mattered more than any military calculation. It proved that the Empire could be hurt. It proved that the machine was not invincible. And in a galaxy where compliance had been the only rational strategy for 2 decades, that proof changed everything. People who had been afraid to resist began to resist. Pilots who had been hiding their sympathies volunteered. Planets that had been cooperating with the Empire began quietly funneling resources to the rebellion. The Death Star's destruction was not the end of the war. It was the moment the war became possible. Star Wars, Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, released on May 21, 1980, directed by Irvin Kershner from a screenplay by Lee Brackett and Lawrence Kasdan, based on a story by George Lucas, is widely considered the finest film in the franchise and one of the greatest sequels in cinema history. It takes the triumphant ending of A New Hope and dismantles it. The Empire Strikes Back is darker than A New Hope in every measurable way. The palette is colder, the music is more ominous, the victories are smaller, and the defeats are larger. And the film earns its darkness not through shock or violence, but through consequence. Everything that happens in The Empire Strikes Back is a consequence of choices made in the first film. The rebellion won at Yavin, and now the Empire is hunting them with a personal vengeance that goes beyond military strategy. Darth Vader is obsessed with finding Luke Skywalker, not because Luke is a military threat, because Luke is his son. And the revelation of that connection, which comes at the film's climax, retroactively transforms every scene of Vader's pursuit into something more complicated than a villain chasing a hero. The film opens with the Rebel Alliance in retreat. Their base on the ice planet Hoth is discovered by the Empire, and the resulting battle is a massacre. The Battle of Hoth is one of the great set pieces in cinema. Imperial AT-AT walkers, enormous four-legged war machines, advance across the ice fields toward the Rebel base. Rebel snowspeeders attack them with tow cables, wrapping their legs, bringing them down. But it is not enough. The Empire is too strong. The base falls, and the defeat at Hoth establishes the stakes for the rest of the film. The rebellion is losing. The Empire is not just winning battles, it is winning the war. And the heroes are separated, scattered, running in different directions with no plan and no guarantee of survival. The rebels evacuate, scattered across the galaxy. Luke goes to the Dagobah system to train with Yoda, the ancient Jedi Master who has been in hiding since the fall of the Republic. Han and Leia flee in the Millennium Falcon, pursued by Vader's fleet, eventually seeking refuge with Lando Calrissian in Cloud City on the planet Bespin. Yoda, when Luke finds him, does not reveal himself immediately. He disguises himself as a foolish swamp creature, poking through Luke's supplies, cackling and babbling. He tests Luke's patience, and Luke fails the test. He is frustrated, dismissive. He cannot see past the surface because he is looking for what a Jedi Master is supposed to look like. And Yoda, small and green and 800 years old, does not match the image. There is a lesson in that moment that extends across the entire timeline. The most powerful forces in the Star Wars universe rarely look the way you expect them to. On Dagobah, there is a cave, a dark place, strong with the dark side of the Force. Yoda tells Luke he must enter it. Luke asks what is inside. Only what you take with you, Yoda says. Luke takes his weapons. He descends into the darkness and encounters a vision of Darth Vader. They fight. Luke wins easily, decapitating the vision. And when Vader's helmet splits open, it is Luke's own face staring back at him from inside the mask. The cave shows Luke the truth he is not ready to accept, that the dark side is not an external enemy. It is a potential within himself. If he continues on his current path, led by anger and impatience, he will become what he fears most. The cave does not lie. It shows Luke his future, and Luke does not understand what he is seeing. Not yet. Yoda's training of Luke on Dagobah is one of the most important sequences in the timeline because it is the first time the Jedi philosophy is questioned by a Jedi. Yoda teaches Luke about the Force, about patience, about the danger of the dark side. But he also refuses to tell Luke the truth about his father. And when Luke has a vision of his friends in danger and wants to leave to save them, Yoda tells him to stay, to let them suffer, to complete his training. It is the same advice the Jedi gave Anakin. Let go. Do not form attachments. Trust in the Force. Luke refuses. He leaves Dagobah to save his friends, just as Anakin would have. And the film presents this not as a mistake, but as a genuine dilemma. The Jedi way says detachment. Luke's way says loyalty. And the story is ambiguous about which one is right, because the truth is that neither one is entirely right. Anakin's attachment, unchecked and unsupported, became possessiveness and led to the dark side. But the Jedi's detachment, absolute and unyielding, led to an order so disconnected from human emotion that it could not recognize the Sith Lord sitting in the next room. The Empire Strikes Back's most famous scene is the revelation in Cloud City. Luke confronts Vader. They duel. Vader is overwhelmingly more powerful, and he maims Luke, cutting off his right hand. And then Vader tells Luke the truth that Obi-Wan could not. "No, I am your father." 4 words that changed the trajectory of the franchise, of science fiction, of popular storytelling. Luke screams, he denies it, and then, rather than join Vader, he lets go. He falls into the shaft beneath Cloud City, choosing possible death over the certainty of corruption. That choice, the choice to fall rather than kneel, is the defining act of Luke Skywalker's character. It is what makes him different from Anakin. Anakin, when faced with an impossible choice, grasped for power. Luke, when faced with an impossible choice, let go. Han is betrayed by Lando Calrissian, who makes a deal with the Empire to protect Cloud City's independence, only to discover that the Empire does not honor deals. Lando's betrayal, and his subsequent decision to help the rebels escape, is a smaller version of the same arc that the entire galaxy undergoes. Compliance does not protect you. Cooperation with tyranny does not buy you safety. Eventually, everyone has to choose. And Lando, like so many characters in the Star Wars timeline, chooses to resist only after he learns, too late, that there was never a version of the deal that ended well for him. Han is frozen in carbonite. The image of Harrison Ford's face, frozen in a scream of agony, trapped in a slab of metal, became one of the most iconic images in cinema. Boba Fett takes the frozen Han to Jabba the Hutt on Tatooine to collect the bounty. Luke is rescued by Leia and Lando, but he is broken. He has lost his hand. He has lost his innocence. He has learned a truth about his father that reframes everything he thought he knew about himself. And the film ends not with a resolution, but with a question. Luke stands at a window on a medical frigate, staring out at the galaxy, and the question is written on his face: what now? The rebellion is scattered. There is no victory. There is only the promise that the fight continues. And the audience, who saw this film on May 21st, 1980, and then had to wait 3 years for the resolution, carried that question with them. What now? What do you do when you have learned the worst truth about yourself and the world has not ended? What do you do when the villain is your father and the war is not over and your friends are in chains? The Empire Strikes Back does not answer that question. It trusts that the answer will come, but not yet, not easily, and not without cost. If you are still with us, your subscription truly keeps this channel going. As Star Wars, Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, released on May 25, 1983, is the conclusion of the original trilogy and, for 16 years, the ending of the Star Wars saga. It is a film about redemption, not as a concept, not as a theme to be discussed. Redemption as an act, a specific act, performed by a specific person at a specific moment that changes everything. The film was directed by Richard Marquand, with George Lucas producing. It carries the weight of conclusion. Everything that has been built across 2 films, every character arc, every unresolved question, every thread of hope and despair, converges here. And the film understands that the resolution cannot be purely military. The rebellion can defeat the Empire's fleet, but only Luke can resolve the story's true conflict, which has always been the conflict within the Skywalker family. The film opens with the rescue of Han Solo from Jabba the Hutt's palace on Tatooine. Luke arrives dressed in black, calm, composed, wielding a new green lightsaber. He is not the wide-eyed farm boy from A New Hope. He is not the reckless student from Empire. He is something new, something quieter and more dangerous. He walks into the most dangerous criminal palace in the Outer Rim and offers Jabba a deal. When the deal is refused, he fights his way out. But what matters is the offer. Luke tried to resolve it peacefully. He will always try to resolve things peacefully first. That is the lesson he has learned. The Rebel Alliance discovers that the Empire is building a second Death Star, this one orbiting the forest moon of Endor. The station is not yet operational, and the Emperor himself is overseeing its construction. This is a trap, and everyone knows it is a trap. The Emperor wants the rebels to attack. He wants them to bring their fleet to Endor so he can destroy them all at once. And yet the rebels go, because the alternative is to do nothing while the Empire completes a weapon that will make it truly invincible. The Battle of Endor is fought on 3 fronts simultaneously. and the film's cross-cutting between them creates a rhythm that builds to an almost unbearable crescendo. On the forest moon, Han, Leia, and Chewbacca lead a ground team to destroy the shield generator protecting the Death Star, aided by the Ewoks, the small, bear-like indigenous species who inhabit the moon. In space, Lando Calrissian leads the Rebel fleet in an assault on the Death Star itself. And on the station, the confrontation between Luke, Vader, and the Emperor plays out in the cold silence of the throne room. The Ewoks are often dismissed as a cynical merchandising choice, and their inclusion in the film remains one of the most debated aspects of the original trilogy. But what they represent in the context of the timeline is significant. They are a primitive, technologically inferior species who defeat the most advanced military force in the galaxy. They do it with logs and rocks and traps and the knowledge of their own terrain. The Empire, which built the Death Star and conquered a galaxy, is brought low on the forest moon by people who refuse to be conquered. The parallel to real-world guerrilla resistance movements is intentional. Lucas, who was influenced by the Vietnam War in his original conception of Star Wars, embedded that influence in the Andor sequence. The most powerful military force in the galaxy can be defeated by people who know their land and are willing to fight for it. Luke surrenders himself to Vader on Andor. He believes, despite everything, despite the evidence, despite what Vader has done, that there is still good in his father. Obi-Wan told him it was too late. Yoda told him he must confront Vader. But Luke does not go to Andor to fight his father. He goes to save him. The Emperor's throne room on the second Death Star is the crucible of the Skywalker saga. Palpatine sits on his throne, orchestrating everything. The Rebel fleet is caught in a trap. The Death Star's super laser is operational. The Emperor's plan is to turn Luke to the dark side, just as he turned Anakin, by exploiting Luke's attachments. He shows Luke the Rebel fleet being destroyed. He goads him. He tells Luke that his friends are going to die and there is nothing he can do except give in to his anger and fight. Luke fights. He takes up his lightsaber and attacks Vader, and in the duel that follows, the Emperor's plan almost works. Vader discovers through the Force that Leia is Luke's sister, and he threatens to turn her to the dark side instead. Luke explodes. He attacks with a fury that overwhelms Vader, beating him down, cutting off his hand, standing over his father with his lightsaber raised. And then he stops. He looks at Vader's severed mechanical hand. He looks at his own mechanical hand, the one that replaced the hand Vader cut off in Cloud City, and he understands. He sees the pattern. Father and son, making the same choices, walking the same path toward the same darkness. And Luke Skywalker, in the most important decision in the Star Wars timeline, throws his lightsaber away. "I am a Jedi," he says, "like my father before me." The Emperor responds with Force lightning, pouring agony into Luke, killing him slowly, while Vader stands and watches. And this is the moment. This is the hinge on which the entire saga turns. Vader watches his son dying. He hears Luke calling out to him. Not to Darth Vader, to his father, to Anakin, and Anakin Skywalker, the boy from Tatooine, the slave who was freed and then enslaved again, the Jedi who fell and the Sith who served, makes a choice. He picks up the Emperor and throws him into the reactor shaft. The act kills him. The Force lightning destroys the life support systems in his armor. But in his final moments, Anakin asks Luke to remove his mask. He wants to see his son with his own eyes, not through Vader's lenses. And Luke does. He removes the mask and sees the scarred, pale face of a man he has never seen before. A man who looks nothing like the villain and nothing like the hero. Just a man. "Tell your sister," Anakin says. "You were right." He dies. The prophecy is fulfilled. The Chosen One has destroyed the Sith, though not in the way anyone expected. Not through a battle or a display of power. Through love. Through the specific, particular love of a father for his son. Through the refusal to stand by and watch his child die. The same attachment that the Jedi feared, the same love that Palpatine exploited, is what saves the galaxy. The Death Star is destroyed, the Emperor is dead, the rebellion has won, and across the galaxy, on world after world, people celebrate. The celebrations were expanded in the 1997 special edition to include Coruscant, Tatooine, Naboo, and other planets, showing the fall of the Empire as a galaxy-wide event. But the most important image is the quietest one. Luke, alone with his father's body, watches Anakin's funeral pyre, and in the Force, he sees three figures, Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Anakin, young and whole, smiling at him from beyond death. That image, those three ghosts watching from the light, is the emotional conclusion of the Skywalker saga. Everything else, the sequels, the series, the expanded stories, grows from this moment. From the idea that redemption is always possible, that the light side is not about never falling, it is about getting back up. There is a version of Return of the Jedi that people carry in their memories, and it is a triumphant one. Ewoks dancing, fireworks over Coruscant. The good guys won, but the film is more honest than that memory suggests. The victory at Endor is real, but it is incomplete. The Empire does not collapse because the Emperor dies. Organizations that large, systems that entrenched, do not vanish because the person at the top is removed. The infrastructure remains, the officers remain, the stormtroopers remain, the shipyards and the surveillance networks and the bureaucracies that kept a galaxy of trillions in line remain. Endor is the beginning of the end, not the end itself. And the stories that follow Return of the Jedi make clear that the transition from tyranny to freedom is not a single moment of celebration. It is a generation of work. The canon establishes that after the Battle of Endor, the Empire fractures. Various admirals and governors seize their own sectors, declaring themselves warlords. The New Republic, formed from the Rebel Alliance, fights a series of campaigns to liberate worlds from Imperial holdouts. The decisive engagement comes at the Battle of Jakku, approximately 1 year after Endor, where the remnants of the Imperial fleet make a last stand and are decisively defeated. The Empire, or what remains of it, signs a treaty with the New Republic, the Galactic Concordance, which formally ends the Galactic Civil War. Imperial forces are required to disarm and retreat to designated sectors. The war, officially, is over. But treaties are pieces of paper. They reflect what the signatories agree to, not what they intend to do. And in the Outer Rim, in the unknown regions, in the spaces between the stars where the New Republic's authority is weak, the remnants of the Empire do not go quietly. They regroup, they plan, they wait, in a mirror of what the Sith did 1,000 years before. The pattern holds. The fall of the Empire does not happen in a single day. Return of the Jedi shows the decisive victory, the destruction of the second Death Star, and the death of the Emperor. But the transition from Empire to New Republic is a process that takes years and is filled with complications, power struggles, and unfinished business. The Star Wars timeline after the Battle of Endor is, in many ways, as complex and compelling as the eras that preceded it. The Mandalorian, created by Jon Favreau, premiered on Disney Plus on November 12, 2019, alongside the launch of the streaming platform itself. It was the first live-action Star Wars television series, and it is set approximately 9 years after the Battle of Yavin, 5 years after the fall of the Empire. The series follows Din Djarin, a Mandalorian bounty hunter operating on the fringes of the galaxy during the fragile early days of the New Republic. The Mandalorian changed the trajectory of Star Wars storytelling. It proved that a Star Wars story could be small, that not every narrative had to involve galaxy-spanning conflicts and ancient prophecies, that a bounty hunter and a baby in a floating pod walking through dust-covered towns on the edge of nowhere could be as compelling as any Jedi epic. The series owes as much to westerns and samurai films as it does to the original trilogy, and the deliberate pace of its storytelling, the long stretches of silence, the wide shots of empty landscapes, creates a meditative quality that is perfect for the timeline we are walking through. It slows down, it breathes. It lets the audience sit in the world rather than rushing through it. The first thing the series establishes is that the end of the Empire did not mean the end of Imperial power. In the Outer Rim, where the New Republic's reach is thin, former Imperial officers and warlords continue to operate. The infrastructure of oppression does not vanish overnight. It fragments, it goes underground, it adapts. And the people living on the edges of the galaxy, the people who were furthest from the centers of both Imperial and Republic power, are left to fend for themselves. Din Djarin's bounty in the first episode is a child, an infant of the same species as Yoda, approximately 50 years old but developmentally equivalent to a toddler, who is being hunted by a remnant of the Imperial military. Djarin retrieves the child, delivers it to his client, and then goes back. He goes back because the child is a child, and he cannot leave a child in the hands of people who will hurt it. The rest of the series, all 3 seasons and the theatrical film that followed, grows from that single act of conscience. The child, later revealed to be named Grogu, becomes the emotional center of the series. The bond between Din Djarin and Grogu is the heart of The Mandalorian, and it works because the series takes the time to build it through specific, small moments. Djarin feeding the child, protecting the child, learning to communicate with the child, removing his helmet, a violation of his religious creed, because the child needs to see his face. The relationship is not explained through dialogue, it is demonstrated through behavior. Djarin does not talk about loving Grogu. He shows it in every choice he makes, in every fight he takes, in every rule he breaks. The Mandalorian's 3 seasons, which aired from 2019 to 2023, also weave in the larger story of Mandalore's reclamation. The planet was destroyed during the Empire's Great Purge of the Mandalorians, and various factions disagree about how, or whether, it can be restored. Bo-Katan Kryze, introduced in the Clone Wars as a member of Death Watch and later the ruler of Mandalore, appears in the 2nd and 3rd seasons as a key figure in this conflict. The Darksaber, a unique black-bladed lightsaber created by the first Mandalorian Jedi, serves as a symbol of leadership, and the question of who wields it and what it means to wield it drives much of the series' political tension. The first season, which aired its final episode on December 27, 2019, is structured almost like a Western. Djarin takes bounty hunting jobs, visits frontier planets, encounters characters who need help. Each episode is largely self-contained, but the thread connecting them is Grogu, and the growing understanding that the remnants of the Empire are willing to do anything to get the child back. The reason becomes clear over the course of the series. Grogu is strong in the Force, extraordinarily strong, and the Imperial remnant, led by a figure named Moff Gideon, wants to extract something from the child's blood. The connection to the larger Palpatine conspiracy, to cloning, to the dark experiments that will eventually produce Snoke and the return of the Emperor, is hinted at but never fully spelled out. The Mandalorian trusts its audience to connect the dots. There is an episode in the first season, the 4th episode, Sanctuary, where Djarin considers retiring. He finds a quiet village on a backwater planet, helps them fight off raiders, and for a moment it seems like he might stay. Settle down, give Grogu a home, but he cannot, because as long as the Empire wants the child, no place is safe. The show understands something important about the Star Wars universe after the fall of the Empire. Peace is not a permanent state. It is a condition that must be actively maintained. And the people on the margins, the ones who live farthest from the centers of power, are always the first to lose it. The 2nd season introduces larger mythological elements. Djarin meets other Mandalorians, including Bo-Katan Kryze, who tells him that his strict religious sect, the Children of the Watch, represents only one interpretation of the Mandalorian way. This shatters Djarin's understanding of his own identity. Everything he believed about what it means to be Mandalorian, the helmet rules, the creed, the isolation, is revealed to be the practice of a fundamentalist splinter group, not the mainstream culture. The show treats this revelation with nuance. It does not mock Djarin's faith. It does not dismiss the Children of the Watch as cult members. It simply shows that belief is complicated, that traditions evolve, and that discovering your truth is not the same as someone else's truth does not make either truth less real. Season 2 also reintroduces Ahsoka Tano in live action for the first time, played by Rosario Dawson, in the episode The Jedi. Ahsoka meets Grogu and reveals the child's name to Djarin. She refuses to train Grogu, sensing his attachment to Djarin, and she draws an explicit parallel to Anakin Skywalker. She says she has seen what attachment can do to a fully trained Jedi Knight. She will not put another child through that. The moment is quiet, but it carries the weight of the entire prequel era. Ahsoka, who watched Anakin fall, who lived through Order 66, who knows better than almost anyone in the galaxy what the Jedi got wrong, makes a choice to break the pattern rather than repeat it. The 2nd season of The Mandalorian, which premiered in October of 2020, culminates in one of the most emotional moments in Star Wars streaming history. Djarin delivers Grogu to Luke Skywalker, who has been rebuilding the Jedi Order. Luke appears on the bridge of an Imperial cruiser, hooded and cloaked, his green lightsaber cutting through the dark troopers that stand between him and the child. And when Grogu reaches for Djarin, and Djarin removes his helmet so the child can see his face one last time. The scene earns every ounce of its emotional weight because the series spent 2 seasons building a bond that the audience believes in. The 3rd season of The Mandalorian, which premiered on March 1st, 2023, shifts its focus to the reclamation of Mandalore itself. Din Djarin, who violated his creed by removing his helmet, seeks to redeem himself by bathing in the living waters beneath the mines of Mandalore. What he finds is a planet that has been shattered by the Empire's Great Purge but not destroyed. Life persists in the ruins. The mines still hold their sacred waters. The history of Mandalore is still written in its stones. The season brings together the various Mandalorian factions, the Children of the Watch, Bo-Katan's moderate followers, and others, into a fragile alliance. The question that drives the season is not whether Mandalore can be reclaimed physically, but whether the Mandalorian people can reconcile their differences enough to govern themselves. It is a question that echoes the larger themes of the post-Andor era. Destroying the oppressor is only the first step. The harder work is building something in its place. Moff Gideon, the Imperial Remnant leader who has been pursuing Grogu since the 1st season, is revealed to be operating from a hidden base on Mandalore itself, using Mandalorian Beskar and cloning technology for his own purposes. His defeat at the end of the season marks the liberation of Mandalore and the beginning of its restoration. But the season is honest about the fact that restoration is a process, not an event. Mandalore will not be rebuilt in a day. The culture will not be unified by a single battle. The work continues. The Book of Boba Fett, which premiered on Disney Plus on December 29, 2021, is set concurrently with The Mandalorian's timeline. It follows the legendary bounty hunter Boba Fett, who survived the Sarlacc pit on Tatooine and, alongside the assassin Fennec Shand, takes over Jabba the Hutt's criminal territory. The series explores Boba Fett's transformation from a solitary hunter into a leader who attempts to rule through respect rather than fear, and it intersects with the Mandalorian storyline when Djarin and Grogu appear in later episodes. The Book of Boba Fett is an uneven series, but it does something valuable for the timeline. It shows the power vacuum that the Empire's fall created in the criminal underworld. Jabba the Hutt is dead. The syndicates are splintering. Tatooine, which has always existed outside the formal boundaries of galactic governance, is a frontier where the rules are being rewritten. Boba Fett's attempt to rule through respect rather than fear, to be a different kind of crime lord, is an experiment in whether the old patterns of power can be broken at the street level, not just the galactic one. The experiment does not entirely succeed, but the attempt matters. The series also contains 2 episodes, the 5th and 6th, that are essentially episodes of The Mandalorian, following Din Djarin and Grogu through events that bridge the gap between seasons 2 and 3 of that series. The interconnectedness of these shows, the way characters move between them, the way events in one series have consequences in another, is one of the defining features of the post-Andor timeline. These are not isolated stories. They are a pattern. Pull one thread, and the whole pattern shifts. Skeleton Crew, which premiered on Disney Plus on December 2, 2024, offers yet another perspective on the New Republic era. Set during roughly the same period as The Mandalorian, the series follows 4 children from a seemingly idyllic planet called At-Atin, who accidentally discover a crashed starship and are launched into an adventure across the galaxy. Jude Law stars as Jod Na-Nawood, a mysterious and morally ambiguous figure who may or may not be Force-sensitive. The series draws heavily from the adventure films of the 1980s, particularly The Goonies, and it brings a sense of wonder and innocence to an era that other series have depicted through a lens of conflict and moral complexity. The show's protagonist, Wim, played by Ravi Kabit-Conyers, is a child who has grown up on stories of the Jedi and the Rebellion. He plays with toy lightsabers and dreams of adventure. He is, in many ways, a stand-in for the audience, for every person who grew up watching Star Wars and wanting to be part of that galaxy. And the series is generous enough to fulfill that fantasy while also complicating it. Adventure, the series shows, is not what it looks like in the stories. It is scary. It is confusing. The heroes are not always heroic. The villains are not always evil. And the most important thing is not the adventure itself, but the people you go through it with. Jude Law's performance as Jod Na-Nawood is the series' most complex element. Jod presents himself as a Jedi, or something like one. He can use the Force. He knows things he should not know. He is charming and competent and seemingly trustworthy. And the series slowly reveals that he is none of these things, or all of them, depending on the moment. He is a con artist, a survivor, a man who has learned to be whatever the situation requires. But the children's trust in him, and his gradual, reluctant investment in their well-being, creates a dynamic that is more nuanced than simple deception. Jod is not a villain. He is a person shaped by a galaxy that rewards selfishness and punishes vulnerability. And the children's innocence confronts him with a version of himself he abandoned a long time ago. What all of these post-Andor stories share is a recognition that the end of one era does not automatically mean the beginning of a better one. The New Republic, for all its ideals, struggles to govern a galaxy that has known nothing but imperial rule for 2 decades. The institutions of democracy that Palpatine dismantled do not reassemble themselves overnight. The people who lived under the Empire do not simply forget what they learned about power and survival. And in the spaces where the New Republic's authority is weakest, new threats are already forming. Settling in deeper now, let us turn to the sequel era. The sequel trilogy takes place approximately 30 years after Return of the Jedi, in a galaxy that has failed to learn from its own history. The New Republic, established in the euphoria of victory, has demilitarized. It has reduced its fleet. It has moved its capital on a rotating basis among member worlds, a gesture of democratic idealism that also means the government has no permanent seat of power, no fortified center, no ability to respond quickly to existential threats. The Republic learned the wrong lesson from the Empire. It saw the Empire's centralized military power as the problem and concluded that the solution was to have no centralized military power at all. It confused the tool with the hand that wielded it. In the unknown regions, beyond the boundaries of New Republic space, the remnants of the Empire have been building something. They call it the First Order. It is funded by war profiteers and arms dealers. It is staffed by officers who served the Empire and by children who were stolen from their families and raised as stormtroopers. It is, in every meaningful sense, the Empire reborn, but more fanatical, more desperate, and more dangerous because its leaders have nothing left to lose. They have seen one empire fall, and they intend to build another that cannot. Star Wars, Episode 7, The Force Awakens, released on December 18, 2015, directed by J.J. Abrams, earned over $2 billion worldwide, and reintroduced the Star Wars saga to a new generation. The film reveals that the victory at Andor, while real, was not permanent. From the ashes of the Empire, a new military power has risen, the First Order, led by Supreme Leader Snoke, a mysterious dark side wielder, and his apprentice Kylo Ren. The First Order has built a weapon called Starkiller Base, a planet-sized superweapon that dwarfs the Death Star. Kylo Ren is Ben Solo, the son of Han Solo and Leia Organa, the nephew of Luke Skywalker. He was sent to train with Luke at his new Jedi Academy, and something went wrong. Luke sensed the dark side in Ben and, in a moment of weakness, considered killing him in his sleep. He did not do it. He stopped himself. But Ben saw. He saw his uncle standing over him with a lightsaber, and that moment of betrayal drove him to the dark side. He destroyed Luke's temple, killed some of his fellow students, and joined Snoke as Kylo Ren. Luke had built a new Jedi Academy. He gathered students from across the galaxy, young people who were strong in the Force, and he tried to teach them the way Yoda and Obi-Wan taught him. He tried to rebuild what was lost, and for years, it worked. The Jedi Order, in some form, existed again. The galaxy had its guardians back. But the shadow of the past is long, and the Skywalker bloodline carries both light and darkness in its veins. Ben Solo, the son of Han and Leia, was strong in the Force from birth. And from birth, he heard a voice in the darkness, Snoke, whispering to him, turning him, exploiting the same vulnerabilities that Palpatine exploited in Anakin. The fear of inadequacy, the anger at being misunderstood, the sense that the adults in his life see him as a project rather than a person. Think about what that means for the timeline. Luke Skywalker, the man who threw away his lightsaber rather than kill his father, the man who believed in redemption when everyone else said it was impossible, had a moment where he considered murdering his nephew in his sleep. One moment, one weakness. and it was enough to destroy everything he had built and send Ben Solo spiraling into the same darkness that consumed Anakin. The film mirrors the structure of A New Hope deliberately. A droid carrying vital information lands on a desert planet. A young Force-sensitive person discovers it. An older mentor figure dies. A planet-killing weapon is destroyed. The parallels are intentional, and they serve a purpose that goes beyond nostalgia. The Force Awakens is telling you that the galaxy has not learned from its past, that the same patterns recur because the same fundamental problems were never resolved. The Empire fell, but the conditions that created the Empire, the fear, the desire for order, the willingness to trade freedom for security, those conditions remained, and from them, the First Order grew. Starkiller Base is the Death Star made larger. The First Order is the Empire made crueler. Kylo Ren is Darth Vader made younger and more volatile. The echoes are everywhere, and they are the point. History in the Star Wars universe does not progress in a straight line. It spirals, it repeats, and each repetition is a chance to either break the cycle or deepen it. The Force Awakens introduces Rey, a young woman abandoned on the desert planet Jakku as a child, who discovers she is strong in the Force. She is found by Finn, a stormtrooper who defected from the First Order because he could not stomach the violence, and the droid BB-8, who carries a piece of a map to Luke Skywalker's location. Together with Han Solo and Chewbacca, they are drawn into the conflict between the Resistance, led by General Leia Organa, and the First Order. Han Solo dies in this film. He is killed by his own son. Han walks out onto a bridge inside Starkiller Base and faces Kylo Ren, and he calls him by his real name, Ben. He tells him to come home, and for a moment, it looks like it might work. Kylo Ren extends his lightsaber to his father, as if to hand it over, and then he ignites it through Han's chest. Harrison Ford, who played Han Solo for nearly 40 years, conveys everything in that moment with a single gesture. He touches his son's face. He does not say a word, and then he falls. The Force Awakens does something else that is essential for the timeline. It shows the cost of heroism on the heroes themselves. Han Solo, who was last seen celebrating the victory at Andor, has returned to smuggling. He and Leia separated after their sons turned to the dark side. The man who found something to believe in, who went from selfish mercenary to committed rebel, has reverted. The victory broke him, not the battle, the aftermath. The slow realization that winning the war did not fix everything, that his son, raised in peacetime, in a galaxy he fought to free, still fell to the same darkness. Han's arc in The Force Awakens is the arc of a man who tried to outrun his pain and ran out of galaxy. Leia, by contrast, did not run. She stayed. She built the resistance when the New Republic refused to take the First Order seriously. She continued to fight, even after losing her son, even after losing her husband, even after the New Republic Senate dismissed her warnings. Carrie Fisher's performance across the sequel trilogy carries a specific kind of exhaustion that is not defeat but endurance. Leia has been fighting since she was 19 years old. She has lost everything, multiple times, and she keeps going. Not because she believes victory is certain, but because the alternative is surrender, and Leia Organa does not surrender. Star Wars, Episode 8, The Last Jedi, released on December 15, 2017, directed and written by Rian Johnson, is the most divisive film in the franchise, and, arguably, the most thematically ambitious. It picks up immediately after The Force Awakens. Rey finds Luke Skywalker on the planet Ahch-To, living in exile on the site of the first Jedi Temple, and Luke refuses to help. He has given up. He has disconnected himself from the Force. He drinks alien milk. He catches fish with a spear. He exists on a ragged edge between grief and numbness. And when Rey arrives carrying his father's lightsaber, the weapon he lost on Cloud City, the weapon Anakin built and Obi-Wan preserved, Luke takes it and throws it over his shoulder into the sea. That gesture, Luke Skywalker tossing the lightsaber, divided the fanbase more than perhaps any single moment in Star Wars history. For some, it was a betrayal. Luke would never do this. The hero of the original trilogy would never give up. But the film is making a different argument. It is arguing that Luke's idealism, his belief that he could rebuild the Jedi, that he could fix what was broken, was itself a form of hubris. He tried to recreate the old Jedi Order, with all its flaws, and when those flaws produced the same result, When his student turned to the dark side just as Anakin had, Luke did not have the framework to understand the failure. He blamed himself. He blamed the Jedi. He blamed the Force itself. And he ran. He believes the Jedi should end, not because the dark side is too strong, but because the Jedi's own hubris, their belief that they alone can balance the Force, has caused as much harm as good. He points to the prequel era. He points to the Jedi's failure to see Palpatine. He points to his own failure with Ben Solo. And his argument is not wrong. The evidence supports it. The entire timeline supports it. But the film does not end there, because The Last Jedi is not arguing that hope is foolish. It is arguing that hope must be earned, that the Jedi, as they were, had to end so that something better could begin. Luke's journey in the film is from despair to acceptance to sacrifice. In the climax, he projects himself across the galaxy through the Force, appearing on the planet Crate to face Kylo Ren and buy the Resistance time to escape. He does not fight. He does not attack. He simply stands there, calm and present, absorbing every blow Kylo throws at him, giving the Resistance the time it needs to survive. Meanwhile, the film builds a connection between Rey and Kylo Ren through the Force, a bond that allows them to speak across the galaxy. These conversations are among the most compelling scenes in the sequel trilogy. Rey and Kylo do not understand each other. They do not agree, but they are honest with each other in ways they cannot be with anyone else. Because the Force bond strips away pretense. Rey tells Kylo he will turn. Kylo tells Rey she will join him. Both are wrong, and both are right. And the tension between those two impossibilities drives the film's emotional core. There is a scene in the throne room of Supreme Leader Snoke's ship that rewrites the trajectory of the trilogy. Kylo kills Snoke, not to save Rey, not to redeem himself, but to seize power. He and Rey fight Snoke's guards together in a sequence of breathtaking choreography, and for a moment, it seems like the story is going somewhere unprecedented. Kylo offers Rey his hand. He asks her to join him. Not the dark side, not the light. Something new, something that transcends the old binary. And Rey, who has spent the entire film looking for belonging, for a place in the story, refuses. She refuses because Kylo's vision of the future requires destroying the past, and Rey knows that the past, however painful, is not something you burn. It is something you learn from. The Last Jedi also follows Poe Dameron and Finn on a subplot that divides audiences, but serves the film's thesis. Poe's reckless heroism gets people killed. Finn and Rose Tico's mission to Canto Bight fails. The film deliberately shows its heroes making mistakes, failing to save the day through sheer determination, learning that bravery without wisdom is just another kind of destruction. Vice Admiral Holdo's sacrifice, piloting the cruiser Raddus into Snoke's flagship at light speed, splitting it in half in a moment of silent, devastating beauty, is the film's answer to the question of what heroism actually costs. Not a reckless charge, a deliberate choice, made quietly, with full knowledge of its price. The effort kills him. Luke Skywalker dies on Ahch-To, at peace, watching the binary sunset one last time, mirroring the image from the very first film. The boy who watched the sunset on Tatooine and dreamed of something more becomes one with the Force, while watching the sunset on the other side of the galaxy. That symmetry is not accidental. The story is telling you that Luke's journey, from dreamer to hero to failure to legend, is complete. The Last Jedi also contains one of the most important thematic moments in the entire timeline. At the end of the film, on the planet Canto Bight, a young stable boy uses the Force to pull a broom to his hand. He is nobody. He has no famous parents, no bloodline, no destiny. He is just a child on a forgotten planet who heard the story of Luke Skywalker's stand on Crate and was inspired. He looks up at the stars, and the film ends. The message is clear. The Force does not belong to the Skywalkers. It does not belong to any bloodline or any order. It belongs to everyone. That stable boy, that unnamed child, is the future. And the future does not need a prophecy. It needs a story worth believing in. Star Wars, Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Released on December 20th, 2019, directed by J.J. Abrams, who returned after Colin Trevorrow departed the project in September of 2017, concludes the Skywalker saga. The film opens with the words, "The dead speak." Palpatine has broadcast a message across the galaxy, announcing his return. The film reveals that Emperor Palpatine survived his fall in the reactor shaft, preserved through dark side alchemy and cloning technology on the hidden Sith world of Exegol. He has been pulling strings from the shadows, orchestrating Snoke, the First Order, and the entire sequence of events that led to this moment. Rey is revealed to be Palpatine's granddaughter. Her parents were not nobodies who sold her for drinking money, as The Last Jedi suggested. Her father was Palpatine's son, who hid Rey on Jakku to protect her from her grandfather. This revelation reframes Rey's journey as a battle against her own bloodline, a mirror of Anakin's and Luke's struggles with legacy and destiny. The film's climax takes place on Exegol, where Palpatine has assembled a massive fleet of Star Destroyers, each equipped with a planet-killing weapon. He offers Rey the throne of the Sith. She refuses. He attacks her with Force lightning, and in her darkest moment, Rey hears the voices of every Jedi who has come before: Obi-Wan, Anakin, Yoda, Ahsoka, Kanan, qui-gon, Mace Windu, Luke. They speak to her. They lend her their strength, and with the combined power of every Jedi in history flowing through her, Rey destroys Palpatine once and for all. The moment when the Jedi speak to Rey is, whatever one thinks of the film that contains it, one of the most powerful moments in the entire timeline. Because it is not just characters speaking, it is the timeline speaking. Every era, every story, every sacrifice that has been told across 9 films and multiple series converges in a single moment. Ahsoka's voice is there, the girl who walked away from the Jedi and found her own path. Kanan's voice is there, the boy who survived Order 66 and gave his life protecting the people he loved. Anakin's voice is there, the chosen one who fell and rose and fell and rose again. They are all there, across the gulf of death, lending their strength to a woman they never met, because the Force connects everything, because no one is ever really gone. Ben Solo, who turned back to the light after a vision of his father, a vision in which Harrison Ford's Han Solo appears one final time, not as a Force ghost but as a memory, as the love of a father refusing to give up on his son, fights alongside Rey and gives his life to resurrect her after the effort of defeating Palpatine kills her. He dies, vanishing into the Force, the last of the Skywalker bloodline. The boy who tried to be Vader becomes the man who does what Vader did at the end, giving everything to save someone he loves. The cycle completes, the pattern breaks, or does it? The Rise of Skywalker is the most contested film in the saga. It was criticized for undoing some of The Last Jedi's themes, for returning to familiar patterns instead of the new directions that Johnson opened. The revelation that Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter was seen by many as a retreat from the radical idea that a hero could come from nowhere, that the Force did not require a prestigious bloodline. And there is validity in that criticism. The sequel trilogy, taken as a whole, is a conversation between 2 creative visions, Abrams and Johnson, that do not always agree with each other. The films sometimes feel like they are arguing as much as they are storytelling. But there is also something powerful in what The Rise of Skywalker chooses to be. It is a film about chosen family, about the idea that your name, your blood, your inheritance do not define you. Rey is biologically a Palpatine, but she chooses to be a Skywalker. She chooses the family that chose her. She chooses the legacy of the people who believed in her, not the legacy of the person who tried to destroy her. And in a saga that has been, from the very beginning, about the conflict between destiny and choice, between what you are born to be and what you decide to become, that final choice feels like a resolution. Not a perfect one, but a real one. Rey takes the name Skywalker. In the film's final scene, she visits the Lars moisture farm on Tatooine, the place where Luke grew up, and buries Luke and Leia's lightsabers in the sand. A stranger asks her name. Rey Skywalker, she says. She looks at the binary sunset, the same sunset Luke watched as a boy, the same sunset that John Williams scored, with a theme that has become one of the most recognizable pieces of music in the world. And the saga ends where it began, on Tatooine, in the desert, at the edge of everything. The 2 suns sink toward the horizon, and a woman who was nobody and became everything watches them disappear, and the Force hums around her, and somewhere in the distance, across the sand, across the years, across the vast and endless space between the stars, a boy is watching the same sunset for the first time. The story continues. It always continues. On October 30th, 2012, The Walt Disney Company acquired Lucasfilm for approximately $4.05 billion. George Lucas, who had built the company from nothing, who had created the most successful franchise in entertainment history, sold it all. He said in interviews afterward that he could see the problems ahead, that the franchise needed to be in the hands of people who would carry it forward, that he wanted to step away and spend time with his family. But there was something else in those interviews, a weariness, a recognition that the story he started had grown beyond any one person's ability to control it. Star Wars was no longer his. It belonged to the galaxy of people who loved it. What followed was an explosion of storytelling. Disney and Lucasfilm, under the leadership of Kathleen Kennedy, launched new films, new series, new publishing initiatives. They declared the old expanded universe, decades of novels and comics and games, to be non-canonical, rebranding it as Legends and starting fresh with a unified timeline. The decision was controversial. Fans who had spent years with characters like Mara Jade, Grand Admiral Thrawn in his original context, Jason and Jaina Solo, felt a sense of loss. But the decision also freed the storytellers to build something cohesive, something where every piece of the puzzle fit together, something where the Clone Wars and Rebels and the Mandalorian and Andor could all exist in the same narrative space without contradicting each other. The result is the timeline we have been walking through, a timeline that stretches from the High Republic era, roughly 200 years before the Phantom Menace, through the age of the Empire and the Galactic Civil War and the New Republic, all the way to the sequel trilogy and beyond. It is a timeline that encompasses hundreds of characters across dozens of stories, told through films and television and animation and literature. And the remarkable thing about it is that it holds together. Not perfectly. There are seams. There are contradictions. There are tonal shifts that feel jarring, jumping from the gritty realism of Andor to the fairy tale adventure of Skeleton Crew. But the core themes, the ideas about power and resistance, about love and fear, about the cycle of tyranny and the struggle to break it, those themes are consistent across every era. There is something about the Star Wars timeline that becomes visible only when you step back far enough to see the whole shape of it. It is a circle, not a straight line, a circle. The story begins with a boy on a desert planet looking at the sky. It ends with a woman on the same desert planet looking at the same sky. In between, empires rise and fall, orders are built and destroyed, families are torn apart and, sometimes, put back together. Wars are fought and won, and lost and fought again. The galaxy, which seems infinite, keeps returning to the same places, the same planets, the same questions, the same choices. That is not a failure of imagination. That is the point. George Lucas, who created Star Wars after reading Joseph Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces and studying the mythological patterns that repeat across every culture's storytelling, built the saga on the idea that certain stories are eternal. The hero's journey, the fall from grace, the redemption of the lost. These patterns recur not because storytellers lack originality, but because the human experience they describe is universal. Every generation faces the same darkness. Every generation must find its own way to the light. The Star Wars timeline, across 9 films, multiple animated series, live-action shows, novels, comics, and a universe that continues to expand, is the most ambitious attempt in popular storytelling to dramatize that cycle. It spans thousands of years of fictional history. It encompasses hundreds of characters, from Jedi Knights to clone soldiers to smugglers to senators to children who have not yet learned what the Force is. And through all of it, the story keeps asking the same question. When the moment comes, when you are standing in the dark and the only choices are to kneel or to fall, what do you do? Anakin knelt, Luke fell, Rey stood. 3 different answers to the same question, 3 different generations facing the same darkness. And the timeline, in all its sprawling, magnificent, imperfect scope, is the story of how those answers were formed, not in a vacuum, not through individual genius or individual failure, but through the accumulated weight of every choice made by every person who came before. Anakin fell because the Jedi failed him. Luke stood because Obi-Wan believed in him. Rey rose because Luke, in the end, remembered what it meant to be a Jedi. Each generation inherits the mistakes of the last. Each generation has the chance to correct them, and each generation, eventually, passes the torch to someone they will never meet. The Mandalorian and Grogu, the theatrical film released on May 22, 2026, continues the story beyond the sequel trilogy's framing. Din Djarin and his adopted son are enlisted by the New Republic for a mission that takes them across the galaxy, and the film represents the franchise's return to the big screen after the conclusion of the Skywalker saga. It is a reminder that the timeline does not end. It keeps going. New characters emerge. New conflicts arise. The galaxy, which seems settled at the end of Return of the Jedi and unsettled again by The Force Awakens, continues to turn. And that is the deepest truth of the Star Wars timeline. It is not a story with a beginning and an end. It is a story about the fact that there is no end. Empires fall and new ones rise. Jedi are destroyed and new ones emerge. Children are born on desert planets and look up at the sky and dream of something more. Not because they know about the Skywalkers or the Clone Wars or the Sith, but because that dream is hardwired into the human and alien condition. The desire to be part of something larger. The belief that the universe contains more than what you can see from where you are standing. George Lucas understood this when he sat in his office in the 1970s, struggling through draft after draft of a space opera that no one believed in. Joseph Campbell understood this when he traced the hero's journey across every culture's mythology and found the same pattern, the same call, the same threshold, the same return. And every child who has ever watched those two suns sink below the Tatooine horizon understands it too, even if they cannot name it. The Force is with you. It has always been with you. It does not belong to the Jedi or the Sith. It does not belong to any bloodline or any order or any government. It flows through all living things. It connects the boy on the moisture farm to the woman who buries lightsabers in the sand. It connects the clone trooper who painted his armor to the rebel spy who sacrificed everything on a beach. It connects the pilot who flew through the Kessel Run to the child who pulled a broom across a stable with his mind. They are all part of the same story. They are all part of the same force. And the galaxy, which is always turning, which is always burning, which is always one generation away from either salvation